Hello, welcome to Newsroom. Yes, the A-team is back. Elvis, President, back with us after a couple of weeks away. Elvis, you okay?
I'm fantastic. I'm back and I'm black.
He looks like he's got a holiday. As you can see, he's got a little bit chipper on the Monday morning. He's got a spring in his step. That's good. But, of course, Kendall Mahamati is also with us. It's been a very busy sporting weekend, hasn't it?
It's been an amazing sporting weekend. I'm looking forward to telling our viewers all about what we think of it.
Oh, fantastic. It's Monday morning. We thought we'd get right into it. Now, our theme for this Monday morning, we're dealing with the overarching issue of rhino poaching. But it's also World Refugee Day today. So we've had to come up with something a little bit different today. So we ask you a question that's linked to both subjects. Do we care more about rhinos than refugees? What do you say to that question? At SABC Newsroom is where you can give us your contribution. Do we care more about rhinos than refugees? Fair question. We thought we'd ask that one this morning. It's World Refugee Day, but we're also looking at rhino poaching, especially the issues dealing with corruption within the rhino poaching fraternity that's making it so difficult to keep a lid on rhino poaching in South Africa. But it's Monday morning. There's a lot of news in the offing. Elvis is back. Let's go to Elvis for an update.
Political infighting has been blamed for the violent death of a Sanko member and leader at Madibeng near Brits in Northwest. As World Refugee Day is celebrated today, a senior protection officer of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in South Africa has been praised for its fair treatment of refugees and asylum seekers. And campaigning for Britain's vote on EU membership resumed after the three-day hiatus prompted by the killing of a pro-EU lawmaker, Joe Cox. Now, those are all your headlines. But before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Mahamati what's happening on the sports front. A very good morning to you, Kendall.
Elvis, a very good morning. I tell you what, I cannot wait to get in touch with you and find out what went on when you were on holiday. It's very good to have you back, Elvis, and nice to know that you're black while you're still at it.
Yeah, he put on a couple of shades, actually.
He has, yes. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today. Dustin Johnson wins his first major as he takes the 116th US Open by 3 strokes with the final round 69.
Can he find the killer pass? Well, that's a wonderful ball, and Payet smashing the crossbar.
And at the Euro, hosts France qualify for the knockout stage as winners of their group after a tepid draw against Switzerland.
We are so excited for what you are going to do this week, and as a family we are standing behind you. Go Booker!
And the Springboks are the darlings of the nation once again as they pull one out of the fire in a dazzling second-half display against the bewildered Ireland over the weekend.
And on debut, he will go over!
All this and more we've got to share with you later on in the Sports Bulletin. But for now, we're back to Elvis President for the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Now, as you know, it's World Refugee Day today, and it's being celebrated. A senior protection officer at the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Margaret Atieno, has praised South Africa for its fair treatment of refugees and asylum seekers.
Zamzam Mohammed arrived in South Africa more than a decade ago as a little girl. Today, she's a married mother of 2. Mohammed left her homeland to escape the war and conflict.
For 14 years, it's not been easy to be accepted, even though the government gave us lots of rights, and we've been told that you've got the right to do this, you've got all the rights, just like a citizen. But what we experience from the community that we live in, it's the opposite.
Many others like Mohammed sometimes complain about being mistreated and falling victim to xenophobic incidents. Places such as Nomzamo and Strand are home to many foreign nationals. An event was held for local high school learners to sensitize them about the plight of refugees and asylum seekers. It took the form of song, dance, poetry and storytelling.
We joined effort with other civil society movement to call to the South African community in general and the South African government to continue embracing refugees and explore their need and encourage, make possible their integration into the South African community.
South Africa is home to close to 1 million refugees and asylum seekers. The UNHCR says it is pleased with the attitude of the South African government.
South Africa has been a leader, and on the continent they've also set the standards. The refugee legislation allows for refugees to reside freely, and they're also granted rights to be able to work, to be able to study, and to make a living for themselves.
The media has also come under attack for giving an impression that foreign nationals have swarmed the country. Mlamli Maneli, SABC News, Strand in the Western Cape.
Meanwhile, Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba also gave an update on how the country is responding to the refugee situation.
Wherever we see intolerance, hatred, division, we should...
Well, that's the wrong insert there. We'll come back to that particular one. Let's see if we can get that clip from Malusi Gigaba that gave an update on the refugee situation in the country.
South Africa has about 121,000 recognized refugees. Every year, we receive large numbers of asylum seekers. If you look at the period between in the mid-2000s, in the 90s, we were receiving up to the regions of 100,000 applicants per year. But over the last 3 years, in 2014, we had about 72,000 applications. In 2013, we had 72,000. 2014, we had about 70,000. Last year, we had about between 62 and 68,000. So the numbers are dropping because of the increasing efficiency at Home Affairs in determining asylum. Now, the problem is that what faces us in South Africa in large measure has been the fact that there is no other avenue for economic migrants to regularize their stay in the country. So what they do is to apply for asylum and make patently unfounded claims in order to be granted refugee status. Now, what that does is that it clogs up the asylum system and creates a situation in terms of which it becomes difficult to protect genuine asylum seekers because their applications become overcrowded by the applications of those who are economic migrants. What we then are doing as the department is we are developing a new international migration policy framework. The Green Paper has been finalized, approved for public consultation by Cabinet, which will enable us to go out and consult with the public.
Now, as you know, we're talking about rhino poaching as well as the refugee status of refugees around the globe today. And of course, there's a question that we pose to you. It's on your screen right now. Do we care more about rhinos than refugees? That's the question we pose to you. Eben will be talking about that and we start the conversation in a short while. Meanwhile, gunmen have attacked a family of 4 at Ngangalizwe in Mthatha, Eastern Cape last night. A 25-year-old and a 21-year-old woman were shot dead, whilst their 51-year-old mother and a child were wounded.
Survivors and eyewitnesses say at least 3 gunmen entered the homestead. Without saying anything, they are reported to have fired randomly at 2 houses. The woman was shot multiple times next to a fridge where she was apparently preparing dinner. She died instantly. Her sibling was shot in an adjacent room while sitting on his bed. He was also shot multiple times and died on the scene. Police found a pistol next to his body, which he might have tried to use in defending himself. Walls and doors were riddled with bullet holes. Neighbors who heard the screams alerted the police.
Whilst we were sitting, we heard the sound. The sound was so terrible. After the sound, we heard the babies crying outside. And then we went outside, found the children of this house outside crying, and we found the bodies of these people.
So far, we have picked 17 spent cartridges from an R5 rifle. No one has yet been arrested, but a case was opened at Ngangalizwe police station.
2 days ago, the local police station received a report of a man who had been robbed of 2 firearms. Now police suspect that those firearms were used in this attack. Reports say last year there was a similar attack in which a young man was killed. Khalid Ugobo, SABC News, Mthatha.
News from further afield. Speaking just 4 days before his country holds a referendum on their membership to the European Union, the British Prime Minister David Cameron gave a bullish performance as he fought to convince voters to keep Britain in the bloc. Campaigning for Britain's vote on EU membership resumed after the 3-day hiatus prompted by the killing of the pro-EU lawmaker Joe Cox. Cox's death has caused some commentators to question the tone of the debate, which has seen fiery rhetoric from both sides. Cameron said that although the debate should be passionate, it should never be controlled by those motivated by intolerance, hatred and division. 3 opinion polls ahead of Thursday's vote show the Remain camp recovering some momentum, although the overall picture remained one of an evenly split electorate. Both sides sought to adopt a more measured style on Sunday, paying their respects to Cox but sticking closely to the immigration versus economy debate that has defined the campaign. Having so closely tied himself to the result of the referendum, many have called for Cameron to resign if Britain votes to leave the Union. The ANC, as the Night reports that the former Public Works Minister Thoko Didiza has been officially named as the party's mayoral candidate in the highly contested Tshwane Metro. Spokesperson Zizi Kodwa says that some journalists have been misled by reports on social media regarding the appointment. Earlier reports stated that the incumbent mayor, Kosienso Ramakopa, would be shifted to a deputy ministerial position to make way for Didiza. Earlier, violence broke out as thousands of ANC supporters waited for the announcement at the Pretoria showgrounds. Kodwa says that police are investigating the violence, including a shooting incident in which a man was wounded. Political infighting among ANC factions has been blamed for the violent death of a Sanko leader at Madibeng near Brits in the northwest. Thabo Morua was shot and killed at his home in Maboloka village. No one has yet been arrested for the murder.
The Morua family is still reeling from shock. 4 people allegedly entered Thabo's house early Saturday and shot him 3 times. His friend was also hit.
The guy was shot around 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. Then he was shot with 3 bullets, 2 in the legs, in the thighs, and the other one in the heart. And then his friend was shot from the back through the stomach. The criminals were 3, the other one was a driver. All in all, there were 4.
Morua was the local Sanko secretary. Infighting among tripartite alliance members is said to be escalating. Now a desperate appeal for the ANC national leadership to intervene.
All meetings of the ANC, the BGMs, the AGMs, the community meeting, the people that come in there with guns and pangas. And then we have requested the leadership to issue a statement. Now, till today, nothing happened.
Northwest Police are investigating a case of housebreaking, attempted murder and murder.
Well, that's your news for now. It's time now to take a look at our theme for the day. And as you know, we're focusing on refugees as well as rhino killings. And we asked the question to you today because it is a bit of a conundrum, isn't it? We want to find out from you. Do we care more about rhinos than refugees? I would like you to send us your comments at SABC Newsroom. That's the Twitter handle, as well as on the Facebook page. By the way, if you like us on the Facebook page, you become part and parcel of the Informed right here on the Newsroom. It's over to Eben.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alvis. Tough question, that is. I can just straighten myself up. A very good morning to you if you've just joined us. Yes, Alvis asked the question, but let's deal with the one issue, of course, which is rhino poaching. Now, in the latest report, it says corruption is at the heart of wildlife crime in many parts of the world, especially on the African continent. This, according to a new United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime report. Now, terrorist groups or even tribal communities who've hunted wild animals to feed their families are not as big a threat than originally thought. The link between corruption and wildlife crime has been reported in Tanzania, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Indonesia, and here in South Africa. And if not stopped, will have dire consequences. Now, joining us via Skype from Vienna in Austria is the UNODC affiliate and author of this report, Theodore Leggett. Very good morning to you, Theodore. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning.
Theodore, just give us a quick overview of this report that you've put together dealing with corruption and wildlife crime.
Well, the report doesn't just focus on corruption. It looks at all aspects of wildlife crime. We're hoping this will be an annual or biannual report in the future. We've compiled a database of 164,000 seizures of wildlife from around the world. And this allows us to look for the first time at the global picture on the wildlife crime situation.
Now, how serious are the findings of this report, and how did you come to this concluding discovery?
Well, with regards to the rule of corruption, we looked at a range of wildlife markets. And you have to understand that wildlife is similar to other types of commodities that are traded illegally, in that a wildlife shipment can be made legal through the proper paperwork. And anytime paperwork is the issue, there's obviously that market is subject to corruption, similar to firearms or pharmaceuticals. If you have paper that shows that the commodity in question was legally sourced, it can be internationally shipped in plain sight. And this is a common problem amongst a variety of wildlife products. And this is something we wanted to point out. The rule of insurgency is sometimes exaggerated because it's a convenient for both sides. I think people are fighting insurgents and people are fighting wildlife crime to connect these two issues. I think we need to look every time this assertion is made at the extent of the involvement of insurgents, how many wildlife, how many species they actually threaten or how many creatures they threaten, and how much money is actually generated through this for the insurgents themselves.
Now, here in South Africa, of course, we've had various court cases dealing with the legalization of trade within our borders. It's at the moment legal, although we're not really allowed to trade. How do you view the legalization of trade in rhino horn and maybe even ivory for that matter? And if it were to be made legal, do you think we'd be able to better handle the threat of corruption and other wildlife crime for that matter?
Well, this is really the hot topic of the year. I don't know what you realize, but South Africa will be hosting the convention of the parties, the CITES convention in Johannesburg, coming up in September. And this is really one of the key topics they're going to be discussing, is this question of whether or not legalization would be the right way to go in terms of protecting the wildlife species. It's an irony that right now in South Africa, the only way that rhino owners can sell their horn is to have someone hunt that rhino, kill it, and send its head home as a trophy. So in order to create an economic value, the argument is made that you need to have a reason for keeping rhinos around. It's true also that South Africa now hosts about 70% of the world's rhinos, and they're mostly descendants of a small population of rhinos that were kept in hunting preserves since the earlier part of the 20th century. So it's been proven that, in fact, giving these creatures economic value can lead to the preservation. On the other hand, certainly wherever the corruption is an issue, you can see these things subverted rather quickly. So the debate will be hot coming up in September in Johannesburg.
Yeah, we look forward to that. But I want to talk about the corrupt element that you're talking about. Are we seeing a rise in arrests on the score? Are we seeing not only poachers but also corrupt officials, even tribesmen and the like, who are involved in this sort of racketeering? Are we seeing these kinds of arrests, or do we need to see more?
We didn't track criminal justice response in this report. We hope to do that in future reports. So I can't tell you how much, whether or not there's been an increase in activity in any given species or in any given part of the world. But I can say that there certainly has been increasing attention given to this topic, and we expect that that will be followed by criminal justice action. Corruption is an issue across a variety of organized crime types, and wildlife crime is where we've seen it's an area of organized crime where we see it's particularly prominent.
Which are the countries around the world that are battling the most with corrupt officials and the types of corruption in your reports? I know India is one, but do we have similar issues here in South Africa?
Well, one of the things we assessed, of course, is the ivory trade, which is a key one. And we saw that there were serious issues with massive ivory losses out of Tanzania, a couple of reserves in particular, in recent years. And whether or not this is corruption tied or not, we cannot prove. But we can say that they were coming out of some public reserves in massive numbers, and it's unlikely that this was not detected by the officials concerned. So it came as a surprise when the population surveys were done that so many elephants were missing from some of these key reserves, as compared to, for example, some of the insurgent areas where elephant losses were comparatively small simply because there are fewer elephants in those areas to poach.
Theodore, thank you very much. We'll see you at the CITES convention here in South Africa in September. Thanks for joining us today.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
That's Theodore Leggett. He's with the UNODC. Of course, they've just released a report about corruption within the field of wildlife crime, and it's often the officials that are involved that are making the products legal. Of course, our question today, it's World Refugee Day. And it's a coincidence that we're focusing on Rhino. But we're asking you the question, do we all, as a collective on the planet, care more about rhinos than we care about refugees? What is your view? We'd love to hear from you here at SABC Newsroom today. We'd love to hear your views because it is one of those things that always cause the passions to inflame. Do we care more about rhinos than about refugees? Anyhow, let's take a look at our picture of the day, of course. Now, it is World Refugee Day. This is one that comes from Ken Page, at Ken Page, and he focuses on World Refugee Day on Boko Haram. And he says, with each hashtag Boko Haram attack, entire families must flee for their lives. Now, it's talking about the hashtag Niger. There you see the picture, what it's like when an entire family has to pack up and run away from conflict, literally fleeing for your life. Of course, today marks the 16th anniversary of World Refugee Day, a day that's been set aside to reflect on the plight of refugees and asylum seekers around the world. For this year's commemoration, the Secretary General of the United Nations has called on everybody, that's you and me, to recall our common humanity, celebrate tolerance and diversity, and open our hearts to refugees all over the world. Let's take a look at some of the comments that have been coming in with regards to World Refugee Day. Don't forget our question of the day. Do we care more about rhinos than about refugees? J-Nats, Jackie Ndunga says, refugees are people who had a home before the worst happened. It could be you. Wow. Shun tribalism and violence. Hashtag World Refugee Day. Thank you, Jackie. Kyle McDuff says, I'm not the responsibility of the West to be a welfare state for the whole. It's not for the whole world. Then don't go and bomb countries, Kyle. Don't go and bomb them. Amnesty Australia says, on World Refugee Day, speak out for all those who are running for their lives and hoping for a peaceful future. Hashtag with refugees. The Villager talks about World Refugee Day. Another day of no peace on TL. Please, Lord, please change things this year. Yes, and there you see, this is the reality out there. That's the reality. Imagine that being you, your home, your country being bombed. We have people in our own country right now calling for revolution. This is the effects of revolution right here. Babies suffering, children drowning, hunger, famine. That's what it is. That's the real face of it. Anyhow, let's take a look now at the front pages of newspapers from around the globe. We'll start in New York this morning. The Wall Street Journal there reports that European officials are planning a series of emergency meetings in case Britain votes to leave the European Union. It's aimed at calming markets and avoiding a domino effect in weaker economies, according to people familiar with these preparations. Yes, we'll look at Brexit a little bit later in the week. It's going to affect everybody. Then we move to China. The Hindu says, An international consensus is building around India's bid for membership to the Nuclear Suppliers Group. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj said yesterday they're sounding confident of India's bid and will come up for discussion at the Nuclear Suppliers Group plenary. That's on June the 23rd, later this week in Seoul, South Korea. Finally, in Iran, the Iran Daily reports that Iran has reached a deal to buy 100 planes from the United States Boeing company, and the two sides are awaiting approval by the U.S. Treasury. The head of Iran's Civil Aviation Organization announced this yesterday. Very interesting now that the ban is lifted. Trade with America. Let's take a look at what's happening around the country today. Of course, this is the man here in Johannesburg, the first witness in the murder trial of Czech fugitive Radovan Krejcir, and 4 others are expected to take to the stand at the High Court here. This follows weeks of delays over a range of issues, including 2 applications for movement restraints to be removed and further particulars with regards to this indictment. Still in Johannesburg, convicted rapist and tennis champion Bob Hewitt, he's expected to appear in the High Court to petition the Constitutional Court. This follows his 6-year jail sentence for raping 2 girls while he was their coach in the 80s. Of course, thousands expected to picket outside there as well. Then in Pretoria, the High Court will this morning hand down judgment against 2 Mozambican nationals accused of committing several crimes, including 5 murders of farmers in Brits in the northwest. The men are facing more than 20 charges, which include 5 counts of murder, assault, and a series of house and business robberies. Now, we'll be sure to update you how those cases develop, and in the case of some of them, maybe have updates later in the day. Now, that's where we are right now. Don't forget our question today. Our question today is, do we care more about rhinos than refugees? Time for us to take a break. Answer it at SABC Newsroom. We'll see you now.
There is a sign for perfectionism. There's a sign for goosebumps. Something that symbolizes more performance. A sign for a special mindset. There is a sign for everything we stand for. Audi Sport, born on the track. Built for the road. Join the League of Performance.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News. Now, time to shift our focus. We're dealing with rhino poaching and World Refugee Day, but time to focus shift our focus rather to conservation in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, Rene West spoke to conservationist Ian Ewing.
From air and water pollution, destruction of forests, trophy hunting, and the much spoken about rhino and elephant poaching, conservation has come under the spotlight around the country, but the Makubu Ntumbela Foundation in KwaZulu-Natal is leaving a legacy of hope. The foundation was built on a promise to the founders and is attracting many people from around the world. Now, joining us from our Durban studio is Ian Ewing from the Makubu Ntumbela Foundation in Durban. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Renee. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thanks. All good.
Tell us, how did this foundation begin and what is your organization all about?
It began in 1993 with a promise that Makubu made a giant in conservation, Ian Player, make to him to preserve the conservation environment, to allow his children and his children's children to experience what he experienced by taking people into the wilderness areas on trails. It was founded by Nick Steele, Ian Player and Andrew Ewing, and has since grown into quite a substantial sized organisation that predominantly focuses on community and community activism and allowing community members to participate on wilderness trails with a particular focus on the Mfolozi area.
And tell us about some of the projects and campaigns that you're involved with in terms of conservation matters.
Well, they're quite significant. They range, we're very involved with Project Rhino, which is an exceptional organisation that helps with the prevention of rhino poaching. There are some Zulu trails that we've recently established through a generous donor, Hanasona, that take foreign people through the Zululand community to experience what the Zulu culture is. And then we work very closely with the Wilderness Leadership School, which allows us to take a lot of black youth and opinion leaders on the periphery of the reserves into Mfolozi on wilderness trails. We're also involved in the anti-mining campaign in and around Mfolozi. And there's a significant focus on trying to preserve the oral tradition and custom of the old game rangers. And from time to time, we hold field rangers gatherings where we try and narrate and record a lot of the old game guard stories, which are unfortunately being lost quite quickly these days.
Now, I see on your website you actually just had, or you are about to have, a meeting with your field rangers. What has come out of these kinds of meetings?
Oh, Renee, it's been absolutely fantastic. We try and get a lot of the mature field rangers, guys that have dedicated their lives to the area and the field of conservation, to try and impart their knowledge to the younger generation. It's also to try and record some of the old historical individuals' life association with the wilderness areas in particular. But we've managed to draw on a lot of the old game rangers from across the country and some from Botswana and Namibia, guys that haven't really been honoured but have dedicated large portions of their life to looking after conservation areas. So we record it, and we're in the process of putting a book together which is going to narrate the life stories of some of these heroes.
Wow, that's actually fantastic news. And besides your book that's about to come out, what else are some of your successes that you've had over the past few years?
Renee, I think that one of the things that we've been very successful in is getting opinion and community members that live on the periphery of the reserve the opportunity of going on trails. As I said earlier, going through the Wilderness Leadership School, which is a phenomenal entity in itself. And we work very closely with them to allow these individuals the privilege of spending 4 nights and 5 days on a primitive wilderness trail, which means that you go and sleep with game guards in the bush, on the ground. And it has a massive impact in turning the tide from people that feel almost as if they've been distanced from conservation in the past to being a part of it, and as a result creating not only awareness but also creating a protective buffer around the periphery of the reserve, which helps obviously with the poaching that's on the rise at the moment. It's been an incredible success story, and we've had a lot of feedback and there's a lot of interest shown. We've also been very, very fortunate to have had a couple of exceptionally good co-trustees involved, and we've managed to record a lot of the old Zulu place names within Mfolozi Tshwane. Now, these place names obviously vary from individual to individual, and it's taken 3.5 years. But thanks to, as I said, Professor Nolene Turner and Moira, we've managed to get this up, and we've actually placed some of these maps at the entrance to Mfolozi, up at Mpila Camp, and also at Steenbank Nature Reserve, where the foundation is based.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a lot of good work, but of course with good work always comes a lot of challenges. What have been some of the challenges that you've faced since you've been there?
I think we're very, very lucky to have an unbelievably diverse board, which allows us to work in a lot of facets. You know, we've got Pro Singh, who's involved in education. One of the challenges that we found, particularly when we're trying to get school kids on trail, is a lack of funding. We've been very blessed to have benefited from lotto funding in the past, which has obviously helped us to sustain some of these trails. Funding is an issue, but we managed to work on a shoestring and we're still able to deliver, so we've been very lucky.
Well, you seem to focus a lot on rhino poaching. Of course, this is a very important and a very big issue that we're seeing, not just in South Africa, but in a lot of parts of Africa as well. What would you say or how can we better involve the youth in rhino poaching, and what exactly is your foundation doing with regards to this?
Well, first of all, we've associated ourselves with a network of entities under Project Rhino and Sheila Entrobus. Within our organisation, the person heading that up is an attorney called Chris van Heerden, who's given limitlessly of his time and energy into helping us gather information and try and network with other organisations to actually prevent the incursions into the reserve and rather than try and be reactive. Chris has been very effective in helping with the crime scenes and a lot of the backup work that needs to be done for prosecution. But I think the focus of our foundation is not to be reactive, but rather to be proactive and prevent the incursions into the reserves. There's a lot more pressure on the Natal reserves at the moment as a result of more stringent controls in some of the northern parks, and we've seen quite a spike in the poaching. So it's a dual approach by ourselves, is the preventative measures by education and the facilitation of those community trails, and then also by continuing to raise awareness. Unfortunately, the rhino topic is becoming, although it's as tragic as it is, it's becoming old news, and I think we need to make sure that through our network and through our association that it's kept in the public eye and in the press so that we keep the momentum going. Unfortunately, to date in KZN, we've had 67 rhino poached, which is quite steep for halfway through the year. But we're pretty confident that we're making good inroads, and from a preventative point of view, we're on the right track.
Well, thank you very much, Ian, for joining us today, and I do hope that you continue your good work there in KwaZulu-Natal.
Fixed up, Rhino. Thank you very much for having me here.
Well, that was Ian Ewing from the Makubu Ntombela Foundation in KwaZulu-Natal, doing some good work there on conservation.
That's Renee Vest with that report. And remember, we're asking you that question really right now on your screen. We're asking you the question in relation to refugees and rhinos. Do we as a society care more about rhinos than refugees, as it is World Refugee Day today? I'd like to know from you. But let's take a look at some of the live comments that we have. Remember, we're asking you, do we care more about rhinos and refugees? Send those comments to at SABC Newsroom. That's the Twitter handle, as well as on the Facebook page. This one from, yes.
I'm just walking into shop because I'm very interested in this personally. So,
Doc Moses Villani, you want to give us that one there?
Tell us what the doc says. He's quite a regular on the show now. Very nice to hear from you again, Doc.
He says, oh yes, show me one hero of refugee rights. One. There's none, he says.
Yes,
in the media, you find more stats about rhinos.
Yes, every day. Every day, that's true. It shows a humanity scenario. Robert Rutherford says, Newsroom, well, there will always be refugees. Robert, that says everything about you as a person, my friend. There will always be refugees, he say, but will we always have rhinos if the slaughter of rhinos carries on? Is that what you said? That's rather insensitive, Robert, but you make a point that rhinos will be extinct sooner rather than later. Fortunately, we've got 9 billion people on the planet, according to Robert.
Well, Lachasa says, poaching, finally, you raise my point. Rhino poaching is influenced by high unemployment, corruption, and the South African Police Service.
Wow.
Well, I hope you got information that we don't have.
Please send it on if you have, Lechas. It'll be very interesting to hear what you got. Monkey Business talks about Newsroom. It's an insult to humanity to place animal lives before humans. Unfortunately, Monkey Business, that's kind of the world where we live in today, Elvis. It's a reality that we would feed our dogs before we would feed the people walking the streets.
That's right.
That's where we live.
It's something that we need to look internally to ourselves and ask that question. Do we care more about animals and rhino than our people that's suffering?
Or should we care about both, Elvis? How about caring about both? How about showing your good heart to both the animals and the human beings, and not make one an issue and the other one a non-issue, as Mr. Rutherford told us there. He said, oh, there will always be refugees.
Yes.
Why do we have refugees? Because we have warmongering nations whose economies depend on war. And refugees are fallout from that. Maybe they should send the refugees to countries who start a war. How about that?
Well, let's take a look at some more comments. What do we have on our Facebook page? And let's take a look here. It says here, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has commended South Africa for its fair treatment of refugees and asylum seekers. Now, that's a good one. And then we also see the actor, Anton Yelchin, best known for playing the young Russian starship navigator Chekhov in the rebooted series of Star Trek movies, was killed yesterday when he was accidentally crushed by his own car against a driveway wall. So says police. Now, if we move on there, Zimbabwe has postponed, I beg your pardon, paying June's salaries for its army and security services by 2 weeks, and some civil servants will not be paid until next month as the government struggled to raise money for wages, the Ministry of Finance officials said last week. Now, if you don't pay your army, can you imagine what will happen next? Well, next, we'll take a break and we'll be back after that.
What's wrong with Triple M? What is illegal here? Who is being defrauded here, Trevor?
It is about the best interest of the citizens of this country.
But the citizens are the ones who are playing, who are members or participants in this. If you put in 15,000 rand, after 12 months you get 1.2 million rands. I mean, who wouldn't go for this?
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News channel.
One other person has been shot dead and another is in a critical condition in hospital.
The CRL has laid charges against controversial televangelist Paseka Motsoeneng.
More than 1.3 million South Africans have been added in the past 2 registration weekends.
The International Monetary Fund warns that policy uncertainty could dampen economic growth in South Africa.
And all eyes are on the new Bok coach, Alistair Coetzee, his challenge to keep everyone in the country happy.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News today. Of course, today we're dealing with rhino poaching on World Refugee Day. So we ask you the question. We've run some of the tweets already, but the question we ask you is, do we care more about rhinos than refugees? Straight to the point, no holds barred. South Africa has by far the largest population of rhino in the world, 70% actually. And it's incredibly important country for rhino conservation. 1,175 rhino were poached in South Africa during last year, a slight decrease on the previous year when 1,215 rhino were illegally killed. This is the first time the country has recorded a dip in poaching levels since 2007, when the rate of poaching began to escalate exponentially almost. Now, a little bit earlier, Alvis spoke to Dr. Johan Marais. He's the CEO of the Saving the Survivors campaign through Skype, asking, what does his organization do? And this is what he had to say.
The Saving the Survivors was started specifically in 2012 by 2 veterinarians here at the University of Pretoria to look after and to treat injured rhino, and especially a poached rhino in the field. We saw at that time that there was nobody really doing any work on injured rhino, looking after them, rehabilitating them, and also looking at gunshot wounds, at fractures, and especially these horrific wounds that they would get, to the faces when a poacher's hacked off the horn. So we started Saving the Survivors to actually look after these animals specifically, and also in close association with that, to also do research on these animals. And, because as you say, we lose about 1,200 animals a year. However, we know almost nothing about these animals research-wise, You know, we don't know anything about the anatomy, which drugs to use on them, which anti-inflammatories to use on them. So currently that is a major problem.
What does it take to save the life of an injured rhino in terms of the monetary value attached to it?
It really depends on how severe the injury is. All the rhinos that I've treated over the last 2-3 years, you know, you get ones with bad fractures, and that will probably cost in the region of 40 to 50,000 rand, whereas an animal on its own is now worth about between 400,000 and 500,000 rand. However, we currently busy treating a cow of about 5 years old, which you might actually know about, a cow called Hope, which was darted in the Eastern Cape and about half her face was sacked off. The amount of money that we've spent on her is probably in the region of close to 800,000-900,000. And people would ask, why would we spend, you know, this kind of money on her? And there's basically two reasons. One reason is to really learn and to see what kind of injuries can we treat and what can we not treat, and how would we be, you know, successful in that. And the example I always use is, if you look at Asia, at the Tshwane rhino, there's only about 60 of them left in the world. So if 2 or 3 of them actually get injured like this, surely we as a human species must be able to make a call and to say, yes, you know, this kind of rhino we can actually treat, and ones with this kind of injury we cannot treat. You know, that's reason one. Reason two is Hope has probably done more for rhino awareness worldwide than probably anyone else that I know of.
Is it worthwhile to save the survivors, Doctor?
Yes, absolutely. I just came back from the Eastern Cape, where a black rhino, which we know is critically endangered, you know, was also darted, and the horn was hacked off. We treated her, and, you know, she has got a calf with her. She's about 18 years old. So first of all, you're not actually saving that one animal. You're actually saving 2 animals. And if you look at the future, she can very easily still have 4 to 5 calves. So again, we're not saving one animal, we're actually saving 6 to 7 animals in the long run.
Now, Namibia, Zimbabwe and Swaziland are among some of the countries that are pushing for a trade, the legal trade rather, of rhino and elephant tusk to reduce the massive killings. Do you think that this will help?
That is a very complex question. One that I, you know, myself and Saving the Survivors do not really know the actual answer to. I think there's a slight difference between rhino horn and ivory. If we look at ivory, you know, quickly, in 2008 we had a once-off sale of about 40 tons of ivory, and that clearly stimulated the market. If we look at the worldwide, you know, seizure of 1 ton and more of ivory, raw ivory in the world since 2008, okay? So that is clear that that stimulated the market. And it's not a renewable resource. If we look at rhino horn, it is different because it is a renewable resource on the one hand. On the other hand, if you speak to rhino owners, you know, that you know, let's say this guy got 20 or 30 rhino 10 years ago, and now he's part of this war, and he must safeguard his rhino. Where must he actually get the financial means to safeguard this rhino if he's not allowed to actually, you know, sell the horn? On the other hand, is we don't actually know what will happen if we open up, you know, the trade in rhino. And you know what I say is, why don't we just go to the east and do a market survey of what exactly they want? How do they want the horn? How much horn, you know, do they want? In what form do they want it? And what do they want to pay it? And once we have done that market analysis, we actually bring that back, and then we decide are we pro-trade or anti-trade.
Doctor, thank you so much for your time and joining us here on Newsroom.
Thank you.
Now that was Dr. Johan Morea, the CEO of Saving the Survivors.
No, it's not by magic that Elvis has just appeared next to me. He did that interview a little bit earlier. We recorded it off air and played it out right now. But Kendall Makamati is also here. Kendall, I'd like to get your view specifically on it, because myself and Elvis, we've been pleading this morning a little bit around the issues of rhino poaching and humanity and what makes a human being and so forth. So the question we asked, do we care more about rhinos than we do about refugees? It's World Refugee Day, of course. What do you think, and what do you think the people are saying?
Here's a quick one. Before we go to this, let me tell you what I think. I think that it's a very motivation. It really depends on where you sit and where you stand. And I think, depending on what people say, we'll get an idea of what it is exactly they sit and where they stand. We had Renal Takudar saying Pramila should be lucky that she was not South Africa's forest minister. Last year, 1,175 rhinos were poached there.
Yeah. Louisa Pearson has this. I think the questions about killing the trade. He says, yes, it will. It proved with the ivory trade 2008. Poaching elephants escalated. Same would happen with rhinos. She says, hashtag kill the trade. No trade, she says. Who's going to pay to look after the rhino then, one should ask?
That is another question. Now, Save the Rhino says, I think that in just 10 years' time, there may be no rhinos left in the wild due to poaching. That is a terrible thought, isn't it? Yeah. Aaron Ramsey at Rhino.
Stop killing rhinos. There we go, written in a hand, beautiful manicured hand, I can tell you. Today, of course, we ask you at home the question, do we care more about rhino than we care about refugees? Today is World Refugee Day, and all around the world, people are dying, people at risk, people are living with very little, people are out of their homes. Obviously, it's not a pretty picture.
It's not a pretty picture. We spend a lot of money on rhinos and to keep them alive, but maybe there should be a balance. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Elvis, we're looking at pictures of refugees, and you notice that none of the tweets that we read were anything about refugees. Nobody was saying, oh, yes, let's spare thought for the human beings in the question.
The one tweet we had earlier was from Robert Rutherford. He said, there will always be refugees, in typical, blunt, short, almost a non-caring attitude towards refugees who are people around the world and people at risk. And that maybe sums it up for us, you know. It sums it up as a species, what we've become a little bit.
It seems like it. It's quite sad that we're at that point where we care more about animals than human beings. In general.
Talking about animals, what about the Springboks this weekend, man?
Talking about animals, they were absolute beasts in the second half, and excuse the pun.
I have an admission to make, and please don't judge me for this. I went to the rugby, I went to go watch the rugby, left at half-time and we were 19-3 down. By the time I got home, I saw that we won the game, so I missed the best second half probably in Springbok history. For my sins, I got punished, yeah. But let's hope they win it in PE this weekend.
No, absolutely. Look, they're looking forward to it. I know the crowds in PE are definitely looking forward to it. They met them at the airport when they arrived, Elvis. Yes. And I tell you what, they were all very excited. We've got a couple of upsides from some of the fans going on my Go Boca. We're looking forward to the weekend. Very good stuff.
No, an incredible performance. When I saw that second half, I could not believe that is the Springboks we had last week on the field.
Yeah, no, they didn't. They look more like the Bless Box, to be honest. But anyhow, Alistair will be at home, Tuti will be in PE, and I'm sure everyone will be happy to see him, and hopefully they'll come out and full house will support him. But a man who's standing by to tell us a little bit more about this week and the weather, hopefully in PE later in the week. I understand it's also rain in the Western Cape. Phil is with us. Phil, good morning. Before you go into the weather, just tell us about this thing about flooding that we're seeing in the Western Cape. Is that for real?
Well, flooding in the Western Cape, there's a little bit. It depends. We really have this every winter. And in terms of the flooding, what really causes it is the driving rain. So it's not necessarily the heavy rain that comes down. So although today we're seeing a little bit less rainfall than we have in the past few days, it really is causing problems there, yeah.
Well, that's tail of the tape, as it were. Let's go to Phil now for a full weather update.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, let's take a look at what's going on in terms of your weather. We start off with Southern Africa as usual. And first of all, our pressure system's allowing for a lot of rainfall to come in towards the southwestern parts of South Africa. Today, only a 60% chance of showers, so substantially less than we've been seeing in the past few days. That first cold front, though, passing by. And we can see that in our isobars there, just moving around the far eastern regions of our country. A secondary cold front, though, moving through South Africa's southwestern areas, and this is what's bringing in that rainfall for today into tomorrow, expecting that rainfall to migrate largely towards the eastern and southeastern regions of the country. It's isolated showers for the most part, but some pretty dense cloud cover coming in there as well. Higher pressure systems now replacing that low pressure system over South Africa's eastern regions, and of course really not much to say throughout the rest of Southern Africa. A mostly dry and mostly clear day forecast for today. As you can see, we're expecting nice warm temperatures too. Windhoek at 26 degrees, Gaborone at 28 degrees. But take a look behind those frontal systems there. Cape Town peaks at only 15 degrees. We're expecting a lot of cloud cover, and we're expecting a fair amount of rainfall as well. Wind speeds here between 35 and 40 kilometers per hour, so do expect that as well. In terms of your Central African weather, again, winter conditions, meaning that we're going to see a lot of that rainfall push further north. The winter conditions really focusing the rainfall over Juba and those far northern regions of Central Africa. As we move into tomorrow, we're still going to see rainfall throughout those northern regions, although we're going to see a lot less rainfall throughout the Dar es Salaam area and those areas towards the eastern regions, just in the interior. Coastal rainfall, of course, still expected for the area. Not too much to be said around those southern areas of Brazzaville and Kinshasa. Just partly cloudy skies, as you can see, forecast for today. Warm temperatures as well as usual. Temperatures nicely into the 30s there, into the 30s in Bangui as well. Showers and thunder showers in the far northern regions, yielding very, very high levels of humidity. So do be aware of that as well. Now, as we move towards the Middle East and South Africa's far northeastern areas, or rather Africa's far northeastern areas, what we're seeing is a largely dry one, higher pressure systems dominating this entire area, and that's making for a very, very hot one there. Isolated showers coming up as far north as Al Fajr. So we're going to see a little bit of a rainy one there. Cloud cover extending even further north as we move through today and into tomorrow. We're going to see a lot of that cloud cover coming up. We're going to see Port Sudan covered by clouds. Now, for today, what we're expecting, as I said, higher pressure systems resulting in a clear day there. Temperatures all the way up to 49 degrees in the interior. Temperatures nicely up into those 40s as well, looking towards Riyadh, Mecca, and even Dubai peaks at 39 degrees for today. So it's even going to be a hot one there. Now, in terms of West Africa's weather, we're expecting quite a bit of cloud cover here. Low pressure systems yielding a lot of rainfall over Lagos at the moment, and we're seeing showers and thunder showers developing there as we move later into today and into tomorrow. We're going to see a lot of those dissipating, and we're seeing just isolated showers in the region. Forecast for tomorrow. Niamey, though, expecting quite a bit of cloud cover. This is where we leave your weather for now, but do stay tuned. Lots more coming up in the show.
Very good morning. If you've just joined us, a minute after 10 Central African time, 10 a.m. that is this morning. We're back with you, the whole team. Elvis, well, he's back from holiday. You see him getting to his work here this morning. Is it a little bit more difficult than normal, Elvis?
Yeah, it is very difficult, man. You're coming from a sun-soaked beach and you come back to work? I mean, come on.
No, it's never easy. Kendall is standing by to give us a sports update. It was a very busy sporting weekend. Of course, today is World Refugee Day. We're also dealing with the theme of rhino poaching after, well, corruption is now in the mix as the biggest threat to rhino. We ask you, do we care more about rhino than we care about refugees? Yes, it's a tough question, we know that, but it's supposed to go right at the heart of us as people. Anyhow, that's the story this morning. That's where we are. Let's go to Elvis for a first update on World Refugee Day.
Political infighting has been blamed for the violent death of a Sanko leader at Madibang near Brits in the northwest. As World Refugee Day is celebrated today, South Africa has been praised for its fair treatment of refugees and asylum seekers. And campaigning for Britain's vote on EU membership resumed after the three-day hiatus prompted by the killing of a pro-EU lawmaker Joe Cox. Those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Elvis, welcome back. It really is good to have you back here. And that sun-soaked beach story, I wish I had been able to go to a sun-soaked beach. It's been cold here in Joburg. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today. Dustin Johnson wins his first major as he takes the 116th US Open by 3 strokes with the final round 69.
Can he find the killer pass? Well, that's a wonderful ball, and Hyatt smashing the crossbar.
And at the Euro, hosts France qualify for the knockout stage as winners of their group after a tepid draw against Switzerland.
We are so excited for what you are going to do this week, and as a family we are standing behind you. Go Booker!
And of course, the Springboks are the darlings of the nation once again as they pour one out of the fire in a dazzling second-half display against a bewildered Ireland over the weekend.
And on debut, he will go on fire!
All this and more we've got for you in the sports coming through to you at about 10:40 or so. Be sure to stick around for it. But for now, it's back to Elvis President, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. Aid group MSF has announced it will no longer take money from any member of the European Union, including Britain. Now, this is in protest at the way Europe has responded to the refugee crisis. Doctors Without Borders says it can no longer take money from countries and institutions that are intensifying attempts to push people and their suffering away from European shores. Now, this decision will take effect immediately and will apply to MSF's projects worldwide. The decision could see the organization miss out on $47 million, the amount that MSF was given by the EU members, EU institutions and Norway in 2015. Now, in particular, MSF has criticized the EU-Turkey deportation deal that is meant to ensure the deportation of almost all asylum seekers arriving by boat to Greece. MSF has also condemned Europe's ongoing attempts to pay dictatorship in Africa to stem migration flows before they reach Europe. MSF says that these moves risk stranding refugees in precarious conditions. Now, to take a look at this particular issue, we joined on the line by Jack Parrock, our correspondent in Europe. Jack, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning to you. Yes, thank you.
Now, we heard the numbers. I mean, it's incredible that MSF has now decided that they will no longer take money from Europe and even Britain. The take on that and the reaction to that from these countries?
Well, it's a strong move from Médecins Sans Frontières, but it probably wasn't too much of a surprise. They have been heavily critical of the European Union's actions in dealing with the refugee and migrant crisis over the last couple of years. And the main thing they're now complaining about is this EU-Turkey deal, this essential shield that has prevented refugees and migrants entering the European Union and has set up a deal where for every failed asylum seeker's request that is returned to Turkey, the EU has agreed that they will accept one Syrian refugee from a Turkish refugee camp. MSF and many of the other NGOs and charities that deal with refugees and migrants say that it is essentially forcibly moving people around. They've been heavily critical. They say that they can't accept money from an institution like the European Union that is making the crisis worse in their view, that would be hypocritical of their own values. And that's why they've done this. The head of MSF has said that essentially that although EU funding is obviously important to them, they have funding from other places, and that really this is a matter of principle, that they can't be trying to do their humanitarian aid work while receiving money from the European Union, which is kind of countering the work that they're trying to do. That's the MSF position.
But where will they get this money from that they are going to lose by not getting any money from the EU or even Britain?
Well, MSF is a very, very large charity and has lots of money coming from lots of different institutions. They will obviously be trying to work to make up their shortfall, but in the lack of funding from the European Union. But as to actually how they're going to do that, that will be something that is going on within the workings of that charity at the moment. They will clearly be having to move around funding, and also they'll clearly be trying to hope that the European Union will see this as a sign to try and change their policy measures as well. So that's what they'll be waiting out for.
Now, 65.5 million people are replaced worldwide. This is the shocking statistic released by the United Nations today. Now, those statistics, which is horrifying, this time last year was chaotic with the largest influx of refugees into Europe. What does the figures look like now, and is that set to increase?
Well, indeed. So in 2015, 1.3 million people applied for asylum in the European Union, and 1 million of them came via the Mediterranean Sea on boats. That is an extremely high number, even for a continent or a bloc the size of the European Union of 500 million people. Those statistics, in fact, say that the 64 million odd basically means that 1 in 113 people in the world are displaced. Now, the European Union set up this deal with Turkey to prevent the flow of refugees coming from the Turkish coastline into Greek islands and then making their way up into the rest of the European Union. But since then, there's been a large number of people boarding boats from the Libyan coastline, from North Africa, and trying to make their way to reach countries like Italy and some of the more southern Greek islands and Malta, other countries like that. So now the issue is, how does the European Union engage with those countries? Clearly, Libya is in a very precarious political position at the moment, with a shaky and fragile unity government just about holding there. So trying to make major political agreements with Libya, like they did with Turkey, is far more difficult. The EU has, in fact, increased its operation in the Mediterranean Sea for another year. It's called Operation Sophia. It's a combined military and naval operation, essentially, to try and save lives in the Mediterranean. And also the European Union is trying to do a lot to deal with the integration of those million-plus people that have entered the European Union and what goes on there. There's a lot to be done, obviously, with the European Union, and there's a lot more people still trying to make their way into the EU. So that's the focus at the moment. There's a multi-pronged effort to try and tackle all of those separate issues.
That million plus that you're talking about, how the countries, European countries, now receiving the refugees, and have those countries changed their policies to accommodate these asylum seekers?
Well, of course, so countries like Germany, which have seen the largest number of asylum requests over the last couple of years, have pushed, essentially they say it can be relatively good to rejuvenate their labour market of young and unskilled labour that is something that's lacking in Germany. But really what this comes down to as well, and the problem with these refugees entering, is the rhetoric, obviously, of different countries, and especially anti-immigration parties that have been on the rise in Europe for a long time now, with the UK's referendum coming on Thursday of their membership of the European Union. That could change the whole landscape of immigration, EU immigration being a massive factor for the UK in their debate on whether they should stay or not. And the point is, whether free movement of people around the European Union means that if you get a European Union passport, you can move to any other country. So if an asylum request is accepted in Luxembourg or Lithuania, that person has the right to move freely into other countries like France, Germany, the UK. So that's where the debate is now, and that's what people are looking into. It's not just about the humanitarian side, it's about what this means politically. And I think the UK referendum is going to be a real barometer of the feeling towards immigration within the European Union at the moment.
Now, talking about that, is that the reason why the UK want to separate itself from the EU?
Well, it's one of the major issues, is that mainly with the UK, the Leave campaign is very concerned about EU migrants who can move to the United Kingdom and claim on their benefit system. That's what the Leave campaign says. Essentially, the statistics and the facts and the figures of the Remain campaign say, look, hey, a lot of Brits are living in other countries in the European Union and potentially claiming on their benefit system, and also our access to the free market of the single market of the European Union, the benefits of that outweigh any potential migration from EU nationals into the UK. But obviously, this is a debate, a nationalistic debate for some, an economic debate for others. So the UK referendum's really dominating the discussion here in Brussels as well. There's a lot of fear in the European Union that the UK might leave, and what the consequences of that for the European project of the European Union could be pretty enormous.
Jack, thank you so much for that report. That was Jack Parrock. That's our correspondent in Europe. Now, as you know, we're celebrating World Refugee Day today, and there's a question that we pose to you. The question is, do we care more about Rhino than refugees? Now, as we celebrate this day of Refugee Day today, a senior protection officer of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Margaret Antiano, has praised South Africa for its fair treatment of refugees and asylum seekers.
Zamzam Mohammed arrived in South Africa more than a decade ago as a little girl. Today, she's a married mother of two. Mohammed left her homeland to escape the war and conflict.
For 14 years, it's not been easy to be accepted, even though the government gave us lots of rights, and we've been told that you've got the right to do this, you've got all the rights, just like a citizen. But what we experience from the community that we live in, it's the opposite.
Many others, like Mohammed, sometimes complain about being mistreated and falling victim to xenophobic incidents. Places such as Nomzamo and Strand are home to many foreign nationals. An event was held for local high school learners to sensitize them about the plight of refugees and asylum seekers. It took the form of song, dance, poetry, and storytelling.
We joined effort with other civil society movement to really call to the South African community in general and the South African government to continue embracing refugees and explore their need and encourage, make possible their integration into the South African community.
South Africa is home to close to 1 million refugees and asylum seekers. The UNHCR says it is pleased with the attitude of the South African government.
South Africa has been a leader, and on the continent they've also set the standards. The refugee legislation allows for refugees to reside freely, and they're also granted rights to be able to work, to be able to study, and to make a living for themselves.
The media has also come under attack for giving an impression that foreign nationals have swarmed the country. Mlamli Maneli, SABC News, Strand in the Western Cape.
Meanwhile, Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba also gave an update on how South Africa is responding to the refugee situation.
South Africa has about 121,000 recognized refugees. Every year, we receive large numbers of asylum seekers. If you look at the period between in the mid-2000s, in the 90s, we were receiving up to the regions of 100,000 applicants per year. But over the last 3 years, in 2014, we had about 72,000 applications. In 2013, we had 72,000. 2014 we had about 70,000. Last year we had about between 62 and 68,000. So the numbers are dropping because of the increasing efficiency at Home Affairs in determining asylum. Now, the problem is that what faces us in South Africa in large measure has been the fact that there is no other avenue for economic migrants to regularize their stay in the country. So what they do is to apply for asylum and make patently unfounded claims in order to be granted refugee status. Now, what that does is that it clogs up the asylum system and creates a situation in terms of which it becomes difficult to protect genuine asylum seekers because their applications become overcrowded by the applications of those who are economic migrants. What we then are doing as the department is we are developing a new international migration policy framework. The Green Paper has been finalized, approved for public consultation by Cabinet, which will enable us to go out and consult with the public.
This year's Olympics will have a very special team. It's dubbed the Team of Hope, the debut of all refugee teams. It's going to make up of all refugees in various countries. There are 10 refugees that will make history when they participate in the Summer Games in Brazil. That's in August. Now, they will march behind the International Olympics Committee flag during the opening ceremony. The IOC says the team will shed some light on the global migration crisis. It will also be a tribute to their courage, perseverance, but most of all, their talents. The team will be led by Kenya's award-winning marathoner, Tegla Loropi, who is United Nations Goodwill Ambassador for Sports. Sarah Kamani met with 5 refugees from South Sudan who are training with Tegla Loropi Foundation and who will be part of that very special team. Here's their story.
Just after daybreak in Ngong Town in Kenya, 5 young athletes ran down the hills. This, their 9th month of rigorous athletics training. Meet the one half of the first all-refugee team to the Olympics.
The idea is that these refugees also have a future, and sports can be a future for them. So we want to give some people who are talented the chance to run and join the Olympics.
As a little boy growing up in his war-torn country, James Nyang, the team captain, took part in various races in his school, mainly for fun. He only started professional training in October last year. This time, his eyes were set on the prize, to be in the history-making all-refugee Olympics team.
It will change my life from the lower level to somewhere.
South Sudan gained independence from Khartoum in 2011, years after these young athletes had fled their homes. War then broke out in 2013. Rose Nathika will be taking part in the 800-meter race. At just 23, Rose has had to run several times. The one race that has stuck in her mind is when she fled South Sudan in 2002.
My parents, they are in Sudan, but I don't know where they are. Since we came, we never communicate with them.
Like the other 9 refugees, when she gets into the racing track in Rio, Rose will be hoping to erase her past.
I take that one as my dreams, because that one can help me maybe to change my family life or to change also my life as well. And just I hope I can make it, and one day, one time, I'll be somewhere else.
Theirs is a story of determination.
We brought people up from nowhere, so this means they started with 0. So now to see how they run, you can see a lot of improve. And this is our challenge, that we can say the people have done something in the short time to run on a special level.
Under the watchful eye of their coaches and specialists, they are raring to go to change the narrative on refugees. They run like their life depends on it, because it does.
I can say they run away from not to be killed. Now they have to look to run for another future.
For the better part of their lives, these young South Sudanese refugees have been in the race of their lives, running away from war. But this time they'll be taking the race of their dreams, participating in the Olympics, representing the dreams of millions of refugees across the globe.
I didn't wish that it might happen, but I think the rest of my life, at least now it has opened the door for me. I see the hope ahead of it.
Without a country to represent, they will carry the International Olympics Committee flag, and should they win a medal, then the IOC anthem will be played. Their hope is that it will not always be this way.
We hope we here will go to our country and we go and raise our flags.
The refugee team, with athletes drawn from South Sudan, Syria, Ethiopia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, is meant to shed light on the ongoing global migration crisis. For those coming from Kenya, their selection to the team comes at a time when the Kenyan government has announced that it will be shutting down the refugee camps in the country.
It's not that I can win gold, but I can show the world that being a refugee, I can do everything that anyone can do.
We want to open the idea for other people also to open refugee camps for training and give them the future.
For now, training continues. Their eyes fixed on the prize. Sarah Kimani, SABC News, Nairobi, Kenya.
Whoopsie, missed harvest there, but we've got a special broadcast happening right now. Just to cut into the show there a little bit, the African National Congress is holding a media briefing to announce the Tshwane mayoral candidate. Of course, earlier the ruling party denied reports that former Public Works Minister Togo Didiza has been officially named as the party's mayoral candidate in the highly contested Tshwane Metro. Let's cross live to the media briefing this morning.
David and Paul. How are you? Thank you.
These are the live pictures coming to you from Latuli House, where we're counting down the seconds to an ANC media briefing this morning. Well, the first thoughts were that they would be announcing the mayoral candidate in the highly contested Tshwane Metro. As you can see, South Africa's media waiting with bated breath, throngs of cameras and journalists getting ready for what is a highly anticipated announcement following weekend media reports. There, one of the ANC NEC members, Jessie Duarte, she's there waiting to address the media. We can tell you, of course, over the weekend, social media reports alluded to Togo Didiza being officially named as the party's mayoral candidate. Of course, the parties denied these reports and have called this very special media conference this morning. Now, spokesperson Zizi Kodwa says some journalists have been misled by these reports on social media regarding the appointment. Earlier reports stated that incumbent Mayor Josientso Ramokgopa would be shifted to a deputy ministerial position to clear the way for Didiza's appointment. The live pictures you see coming in now. Of course, there were instances of violence. Looks like instances of violence as thousands of ANC supporters waited for the announcement at the Pretoria showgrounds yesterday. Police are investigating. Let's go to the live conference now.
Delegation of the ANC in Gauteng and in Tshwane, and we are doing this to especially demonstrate the fact that this is a decision of the African National Congress across all structures. I will start on my left and just introduce the people who are sitting in front. Comrade Hope Papo. He is the Provincial Secretary of the ANC in Gauteng. Next to him is Comrade Paul Mashatile, the Chairperson of the province in Gauteng. Seated next to Paul is Comrade Zweli Mkhize, the Treasurer General of the ANC. On my right, seated next to me, is Comrade Jessie Duarte, the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. Next to her, Comrade Mapiti Maptsena, who is the Regional Deputy Chairperson of the ANC in Tshwane. And on the far right is Comrade Sputla Josientso Ramokgopa, who is the Chairperson of the ANC in Tshwane. Comrades, without wasting any time, I will ask the DSG to come forward and read the statement. May I just also acknowledge that sitting with us is obviously other officials of the ANC in the province, as well as the full complement of the office bearers in the region of Tshwane. Thanks, DSG.
Good morning, and I hope this has been a good morning for you. I'm going to read our statement to you. It will be handed out, and then we'll take some questions. The African National Congress announced mayoral candidates for all metropolitan municipalities except for the city of Tshwane on Saturday, 18 June 2016. Explaining the decision not to announce a candidate for the city of Tshwane, we said that the Tshwane Regional Executive Committee had presented 3 names to the Gauteng Provincial Executive Committee in line with our 52nd National Conference resolution on deployment. The PEC, however, was not convinced of the candidates proposed and made a representation to the NEC for an intervention in Tshwane. May I just remind you that our resolution says that the REC will submit 3 names to the Provincial Executive Committee and that the PEC's decision is final. The ANC prides itself on our very robust system of internal democracy, and thus any intervention that alters the outcome of a democratic process is not taken lightly. It must also be noted that this is not the first time the ANC has taken such a decision. National and provincial leadership agreed on the intervention, and at a meeting held on Sunday, the 19th June 2016, Comrade Togo Didiza was presented to the REC for consideration as ANC mayoral candidate for the city of Tshwane. The intervention was unanimously accepted by the REC, and Comrade Togo Didiza is thus the ANC mayoral candidate for the city. Comrade Didiza is a senior and seasoned leader of our movement with extensive experience in governance. Her nomination for mayoral candidacy demonstrates our commitment to strengthening the capacity of leadership at local government level across the board. We are confident that once elected by the people of Tshwane, she will continue to build on the solid foundation laid by Comrade Gonsienzo Sputla Ramakgopa and his collective over the last 5 years. The ANC expresses its gratitude to Comrade Ramakgopa, who is an extremely capable administrator and has led ably the capital city as its executive mayor. We have no doubt that he will not be lost to the organization. The ANC has noted and is deeply disturbed by the outbreak of violence which took place at the outskirts of the meeting which was held yesterday. A member of the ANC passed away and several others were injured. The ANC condemns this behavior in the strongest terms and will act decisively where it is proven that any of our members were responsible for the shooting. We also call on the law enforcement agencies to act with no fear or favor to bring the perpetrators to this criminal act to book. We also call on our communities to make sure that if they know who the perpetrators are, to name them immediately and bring them out so that we can make sure that they are charged for this heinous act. We send our deepest condolences to the family and friends of our comrade who passed away. His name will not be made public by us until we are sure that his next of kin have been properly notified. May he rest in peace. The ANC calls for calm and discipline amongst our members, and we ask them to rally behind the decision of the organization and the REC, which is represented here very ably by the chair, the deputy chair, and the regional secretary, as well as other members of the REC. The robust nature of our process provides an opportunity for members of our organization to voice their displeasure. Ultimately, it is incumbent on all our members to close ranks, support and rally behind Comrade Togo Didiza and all councillor candidates as they lead us to a decisive and overwhelming victory of the ANC on the 3rd of August 2016. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade DSG. We're going to open up for 2 rounds of questions. We'll take 5 questions per round. If you could please just indicate if you do have a question by lifting up your hand, introduce yourself and pose your question, please. Or actually, there are no questions. Was the decision that we were expecting? I've heard Power FM running that the whole morning this morning. Are there any questions that anybody would like to pose on this matter? Should I nominate? Yes, sir. Okay, number 1, I've noted you. Sophie will be number 2. Put you number 3, Clement. Only number 4. Is there a last hand in this round? Okay, number 5. Please, if you would please proceed. Yes, sir.
Once again, we're seeing almost like a celebrity candidate being parachuted into this measure. Are there some real concerns that there'll be some more pushback because of this?
Thank you.
How are you going to ensure that all structures and members of the ANC accept the decision and going forward we are able to campaign without any problems?
Thank you. Number 3 was here. Clement.
Thank you. Clement Mangatela from News. Are you at liberty to tell us the reasons why you were not convinced about the 2 names that were submitted?
By the REC, you mean the 3 names? Thank you. Number 4 is Oli.
Thank you very much. Colin Gam from ENCA. My question surrounds whether or not there are discussions at all regarding coalitions in Tshwane. Will there be, or is the ANC in talks about coalitions in Tshwane? And my other question, perhaps it could be answered by anyone really, is why was the name of the incumbent mayor not really considered? What's the problem?
Thank you. Last one in front here. Are you covered? All right. Did you have a question? Okay, cool. Comrade Tshwane.
Thank you very much. Togo Didiza is not a celebrity of any nature. She is a very hard-working activist of the African National Congress. She served in various different portfolios, including as Minister of Public Works, Minister of Agriculture. So she is a candidate with extremely deep level of experience in governance. And to simply cast her away as a celebrity is suggesting that she's not competent. She's extremely competent, and she will be able to lead the mayoral committee very ably and ensure that the integrated development program for Tshwane is ably implemented, and that is why we thought of her. How will we ensure that all structures accept the decision? The reason we've brought the entire complement of the Regional Executive Committee here with us today is because they have decided amongst themselves, firstly, to unanimously accept the nomination of Togo Didiza, and that they will make sure that they go out to all the structures and talk to this matter and explain as we would in every other circumstance of this nature. Thirdly, why was the PEC not convinced? When we do the selection of mayoral candidates, the reason our resolution is framed in the manner that it is framed, where we ask them to send us 3 names to the PEC and the decision of the PEC is final, is so that evaluations can be made on more than just technical competence, but also the unity of the ANC in a particular region. And one of our difficulties has been that the intensity of the competition in Tshwane had led to a breakdown of the relationships between two key individuals in that region. Now, they will still be the regional leadership. I need to make that very clear to all of us. They will still be leading the region, and we want to give them the opportunity to focus their minds on building the ANC structurally and making sure that they go back to the ground, as they are both activists, both the Comrade Ramaphosa and Comrade, both activists competed against each other. Now they have to go back to the ground and work hard to unite the ANC together. Thirdly, no, we have no discussions about coalitions in Tshwane or anywhere else. Normally, that doesn't happen until you really have to discuss it, you know, and we don't believe that we have to. We have been working on the ground in Tshwane. We were there on Friday, the entire day, and from the response of the community, who may have questions, the question that is not being put to us is that they will not support the ANC. And I think there's a vast difference between being cynical and being realistic. And we're being very realistic. We're also not arrogant. We count every vote as being very important. And so we're going back on the ground, and we're going to work hard for the vote of Tshwane. So why was Ramaphosa not considered? I think the decision of the PEC is a final decision, and we are all respecting that decision. And also that in the three names that were presented by the REC to the PEC, he was not amongst the three. So we must just keep that in mind and work backwards if we can, and understand that we are deploying these comrades to work in the ANC and to make sure that the ANC is solid and united.
Final round.
That's the announcement that we just get, of course, from the Thule House this morning. Toko Didiza is the mayoral candidate for the city of Tshwane in the upcoming local government elections. That, of course, takes place on August the 3rd year in South Africa. That's the announcement. We'll be back with that announcement. Well, we'll give you a recap of that announcement at the top of the hour in our news. That's in about 20 minutes' time if you've just missed it. But right now, before we go to sports, let's take a quick look at what's been happening in the world of social media this week. As you know, over the past week, social media trends saw the Springboks being the most talked about. Of course, there was Youth Day. President Jacob Zuma were neck and neck with Oscar Pistorius. Other of the most spoken topics about it included Eskom, a racist rant. It seems we always have those here in South Africa, as well as the voters' roll. Meanwhile, the Orlando shooting and Brexit, well, they take the lead in the United States. Of course, presidential candidates very much in the news there. Then Boko Haram killing 18 women at a funeral have also made it onto the international charts along with Big Brother. But to tell us about these and other scenarios playing out in social media, as always, Managing Director of Roy Africa, Tonya Kure, joins us this Monday morning. Morning, Tonya. Nice to have you with us on a Monday for a change.
Very good morning, Evan.
Tonya, Oscar and the Springboks. Is that what South Africans are the most passionate about on social media, and that's the sort of conversation that's going on around there?
Well, in news media, we saw the Springboks took a very large chunk of the news media pie. In fact, it was the biggest story in the past 7 days, the Springboks. So it was sports mad. But in social media, the story was Youth Day. Almost a third, well, actually over a third of our social media conversation belonged to Youth Day in some way, shape or form. Some beautiful images out there, some commemorations out there. And second on the list is Oscar Pistorius. He's back.
Yeah, Oscar's back in prison, yeah? Let's quickly talk about the thing that always pops up here in South Africa. Now, on Youth Day, we had this wonderful day where we reflected on our past and where we come from and how the young people saved us from ourselves a little bit. And then the very next day, we've got another racist rant with a K word being sprinkled liberally across social media. Is that just something that we have to kind of accept now in the time of social media, that there'll be lots of individuals that will be caught on the hop?
I think absolutely. I think social media, the nature of social media is it's an exposure. So when people say anything, they're subject to a phone, a video camera in them or something like that. But this particular story, what's interesting to me is in a very short space of time, it's bigger than Penny Sparrow.
Yeah.
And that was quite interesting. The racist rant as well, when you looked at social media, I'm often astonished at South African sense of humour.
Yeah.
You know, she referred to things like a calibre of black people.
A calibre black person, or a different calibre black person in Durban and in Johannesburg. And my friends have been telling me, no, don't worry, I'm a Durban darkie. So, you know, I think we take that in its stride. But it's kind of disturbing that we can't seem to get away from this thing.
Yes. I think social media very quickly found her telephone number, her address. All those sorts of things were made publicly available within seconds of it happening.
Yeah,
so,
her mom had to come out and say she wasn't raised like, she didn't raise her like that,
right.
you know. So her mother distanced herself from her, and she's apparently been in tears since then. But yeah, it's scary that, you know, there's always this undercurrent that seemed to stay with us.
And it seems to be happening more and more, Eben. You know, we've seen these racism-related stories and social media stories come through more and more often, more and more frequently. And I think with the Penny Sparrow story was the biggest one, and it now has led to a whole bunch of other stories being exposed.
Yeah,
I
Matthew
think.
Tennyson,
yes, that's right.
that sort of stuff. But now, don't we learn or don't we read? You know, because surely people must realise that social media is a broadcast platform like any other, and you'll get into trouble.
I don't think we do learn. I think we feel protected. I think, again, you know, this story about sitting behind a smart device makes you feel like you're in your own little bubble.
Is that why we can be so mean also behind this smart device and talk about other people's children can die and all these kinds of things? I mean, the level of just meanness in general on social media is what concerns me in South Africa in particular.
Also, the moral high ground. Many people tend to take the moral high ground behind their Facebook profile or behind their tweet, you know, and it's very different when you're faced with reality. Like the gorilla story was another one. There was hundreds and thousands of people saying that the woman was to blame, the parent was to blame.
Yeah.
This moral high ground story
self-righteousness, we call it in the old language.
Yes.
Let's quickly talk about what's happening internationally, because I'm very interested in what's happening this week. Of course, I think the big story for this week is probably Brexit.
Yes.
Yeah, we know all the other stuff is going on, but it must be Brexit and Britain exiting the European Union. It could be the biggest thing since probably the Second World War. I don't think people realise how massive this can be.
It's absolutely huge. I saw some social media technology that predicted that the UK would remain. So we'll see how that pans out. But yes, Brexit is a very, very big story. It's going to be the story of the week for sure.
Yeah.
But over the past 7 days, we've seen the Orlando shooting and shooter story, and Euro 2016 coming in as the biggest stories by far, almost 65% of the chart. So that's massive.
Massive. And tell me, what's the story with the Big Brother UK? I'm always interested when these people get themselves into a spin. What happened there?
It was a little bit outrageous.
Is it?
Yes, apparently there was sexual relations happened on air.
On air?
And yes. And,
we got no more scam, eh?
No,
no more scam, I tell you. Tanya, where are the days where, you know, you became famous when you did something, where you did something incredible for humanity?
Yes.
Now you just got to take your kit off and show your bits, and you're a celebrity.
Well, he was ousted from the house, the guy who was involved.
Okay.
So the public didn't like it.
Okay, the girl,
Even
she
though
got
they
to stay?
spoke about it, the girl got to stay. Yes, I believe so. I'm not a big Brother fan. Yeah, but
okay, now I'm going to have to go and Google that just for research purposes. But to be honest with you, I mean, the mind boggles at how. I think we've been dumbed down to a level now where it's actually embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. What is interesting about that Big Brother story is that it is bigger than the 18 women that were killed at that funeral by Boko Haram.
Yeah,
Twice the size,
Tonya, our
actually.
question of the day deals exactly with that. So we've got a theme. It's called Rhino, on Rhino poaching. That's our theme today. But also it's World Refugee Day.
Yes.
So we asked people, do we care more about rhinos than refugees? And, you know, some people say, yeah, but there will always be refugees.
Wow.
You know, wow. That's exactly the case in point. But, Tonya, we've run out of time. I mean, I could sit with you until the top of the hour, but Kendall Mahamati will be very upset if we do. So it's time for us to go to sport. But, as always, wonderful to have you with us. Thank you.
Lovely to be here, Eben. Thank you very much.
Tonya Kure, she's the MD of Roy Africa. They help us with all the social media stuff, send us our pics of the day and all that sort of nice things that you love so much on this very show. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Kendall will give us a proper sports update.
Did you go to heaven? Kelvin is the one who created all this. What are you fighting over? Us? If there is 10 million in my account, it will be in the front page the next day.
Do you have 10 million?
Oh, Jesus, hold my hand. Hallelujah.
It's happening right here on Question Time today.
Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
Right now, welcome back. The Springboks have landed in Port Elizabeth ahead of the much-anticipated encounter against Ireland at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium on Saturday. Both Ireland and the Springboks have to win this coming weekend if they wish for a series win.
A large number of Boks supporters came to welcome their heroes, fully aware that the Springboks will have to attack from the start if they wish to win the series. They say the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium is a happy hunting ground for the Boks, as they haven't lost a single match here. The Boks have been applauded for their 32-26 win over Ireland on Saturday.
We are so proud of you guys for last night, what you did for us. We are so excited for what you are going to do this week. And as a family, we are standing behind you. Go Boks!
First half performance was bad. If we can build on that performance, I think we'll beat Ireland definitely on Saturday.
Stadium operator Access Management has confirmed that tickets are selling like hotcakes. The Boks have played 3 test matches at this 46,000 capacity stadium. In 2014, the game generated 155 million rand for the area. And on Saturday, it is expected to bring in 180 million rand.
We believe that ticket sales we've certainly seen an upsurge in ticket sales, and we believe that we will probably have a sellout. It's an exciting time for us. You know, tickets are available still to the public.
Kick-off is at 5 o'clock on Saturday. Zolani Moya, SABC News, Port Elizabeth.
Springbok flyer Patrick Lambie has been ruled out of the third test against Ireland as he continues to recover from concussion. 3 out of the Springboks, as Dwayne Vermeulen, Warren Whiteley, Trevor Nyakane picked up knocks in their second Irish test and will be assessed today, while Lord de Jager's calf strain is being monitored and a decision on his availability will be made probably today or tomorrow. Now, as Eben promised, I'm giving you a full sports update for a Monday morning, but all roads lead to redemption for the Springboks, which all of a sudden is paved with gold, this road. Teetering on the edge of a first-ever series defeat to Ireland after the first-ever loss to the same team the previous week, the Springboks and Alistair Coutier pulled it out of the fire in the most dramatic way on Saturday. Joining me is Stolele Sochelelwa to discuss this, as well as some other very interesting tidbits happening around the world. Good morning, welcome back.
Yeah, morning, Kendall. It's certainly a much better morning on a Monday, as it was last week. But yeah, that comeback from the Springboks on Saturday was something special, particularly the last 20 minutes, because after 55 minutes, they were still trailing by a huge margin. And it's not often in Test rugby you see a team concede, more than 19 points without them registering more points on their tally. But South Africa did well to contain them in the second half and also apply the pressure with the bench coming on.
Yeah, the bench came on and it was like some 29 points to 7 that was scored by the Springboks versus Ireland in the second half. Interesting that you mentioned the bench right up front, because what's been coming out in social media, it's been the question around, oh, it was the Lions that came through and sorted things out for the Springboks because they were so dismal right to the beginning. I mean, our viewers are looking at pictures of some of the Irish shenanigans, if I could, but practically demolishing the Springboks in the set pieces. That question around the Lions versus the Boks, what do you make of that?
I think the old faithful from Boksburg and all surrounding areas of Ellis Park will walk around with their chest puffed up now because they've got a few Lions players in that Springbok squad, which is something they haven't seen in a while, I think over a decade. But to say it's Lions versus Boks, I think it's already dividing the team. Once you're in that squad, you're no longer a Lions player, you're a Springbok player. And the players will also know that. And the fans need to know that, because I was embarrassed on Saturday to hear when a particular player had a ball in hand was being booed. It's something that has never happened at Ellis Park, particularly the entire squad running under the tunnel at halftime, even though when they were trailing behind, the whole of Ellis Park was booing them. It's something that I've never experienced at the stadium. But that on of its own just shows at the moment the supporters, they are not behind the Springboks wholeheartedly. We've got, different, ranks, or different supporters supporting Lions players within the Springboks squad, and players who are supporters who are supporting the Stormers within the Springbok setup. We just need to pull together as one, and remember, it's a Springbok, and it's not a Lions Springbok or a Stormers Springbok. It's something that we need to support, whether we're losing 19-3 at halftime, because we don't know what the second half has for us. And like we saw on Saturday, it proved to be the difference.
I agree with you 100%. But if people are really going to go down the route of it's a Lions versus so-and-so, the brand of rugby that we're all hoping that Kutsia and the Springboks are able to adopt is that played by the Lions, is it not? It's hard running, it's free flow, it's ball in hand, something which is fairly new to South African Springbok fans. But this same kind of rugby, if I could, it really came under John Mitchell's tenure. And Ackerman, that's where he got it from, isn't it?
Yeah, you see, what happened with the Lions was they went through a period where they had no sponsor. Things weren't looking good at Ellis Park at that time, I think 3 or 4 years ago. But with the inclusion of John Mitchell 2011, if I'm correct, where they were contesting now, and they were, after he had departed, now they were sort of the team that was rebuilding through that Currie Cup, because they started gaining momentum from Currie Cup, getting to the semis, getting to the finals. Then from there on, they started competing at Super Rugby. But I just want to correct something, Kendall. It's not the style of rugby of the Lions. It's not the style of rugby of the Stormers or the Bulls. It's the style of rugby of Alistair Kutsia and his management team. And that's what we need to understand, and that's what we need to support.
And that's exactly why I brought you here, to actually bring us to the nub of the matter, that it's the Springboks that are on display. It's not any one particular franchise. No, thank you very much for that. Let's have a quick look at what was going on the pitch. The set pieces, the Springboks were struggling in the first half. They finally managed to right the ship a little bit. The ball was getting ripped out of the hands in contact. The kicking by the fly half was woeful. He left some 9-10 points out on the field there. That put us under scoreboard pressure. Come second half, things changed. Should we be happy that things changed and they managed to come back in a dramatic fashion, or should we be worried that they needed to come back in the first place?
It shows character in the team, and it furthermore stamps the saying of South Africans, they don't just give up, especially when you put on that Springbok or you represent your national colours. But the way they started, not what Alistair Kutsia would have wanted, especially after having gone through what had happened at Newlands. And that entire week, they would have spoken about everything, tried to rectify the mistakes, look at individuals and individual aspects of the game in which they failed. On Saturday, they just looked like a team who's desperate to make changes, a team who's desperate to not make mistakes. And some players look tentative, some players are out of form. So when you've got a mixture of that and players who are really struggling, like Frans Maghleb when it comes to the scrums, you know, he was nowhere on Saturday again. But is it now time to say, well, let's look at Julian Redelinghuys? No, you give a player time. You give a player, because he's gained, if you look at a player like Strauss, and playing second fiddle to Bismarck Du Plessis over the years, he would have played maybe 10 minutes in the second half, 5 minutes in the second half, 6 minutes in the second half, and then if you do that for 4 years or 3 or 4 years, you then start gaining experience. So that's what will happen with Julian Redelinghuys. So I say stick with Frans Maghleb, but in the second half, you know, Alistair Coetzee now is faced with a tough task to, do I drop Duane Vermeulen and start with Warren Whiteley? You know, do I start with Jaco Kriel because Flo is not getting to the rucks? And the issue now is with what I saw from the game is that Peter Steph du Toit is now a ball carrier, which is now leaving space or leaving one man short in that tight five to go clean in the rucks, which is then dragging Siya Kolisi there. And that is why we're seeing less ball carries from him. Rowan Combrink on the wing, does he start him? Does he not? It's going to be a tough week, and he's going to need to make those tough calls because they need to secure a serious win, and they will want to, you know, they would want to end on a high note, and they will want to end how they would have wanted to start at Newlands.
No, absolutely. We also didn't get to touch on whether Bongi Mbonambi is ever going to play or not. It's quite sad what's happening to the guy. Everybody else got a start, including Franco Mostert. Xolele Sotshelelo, thank you so much for coming through to chat to us about what you think about the Springboks and their performances. We will be chatting some more to him closer to the end of the week before we get to that next test. This is where we leave it with the sport. It's now time for the weather forecast. In fact, no, we're not doing weather forecast. We're taking a short break, and we'll be back at the top of the hour with more news.
One other person has been shot dead and another is in a critical condition in hospital.
The CRL has laid charges against controversial televangelist Paseka Motsoeneng.
More than 1.3 million South Africans have been added in the past 2 registration weekends.
The International Monetary Fund warns that policy uncertainty could dampen economic growth in South Africa.
And all eyes are on the new Bok coach, Alistair Coetzee, his challenge to keep everyone in the country happy.
What's wrong with Triple M? What is illegal here? Who is being defrauded here, Trevor?
It is about the best interest of the citizens of this country.
But the citizens are the ones who are playing, who are members or participants in this. If you put in 15,000 rand, after 12 months you get 1.2 million rands. I mean, who wouldn't go for this?
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News channel.
Usisiwe Jamsana, SABC News, Alice.
Mzwande Lembet, SABC News, Doha, Qatar.
Kunatibing Mase, SABC News, Alice.
Diabo Seto, SABC News, Geneva, Switzerland.
Nompumela Losiziba, SABC News, Moscow, Russia.
Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
Craig Murray, SABC News, Stellenbosch.
We bring the news back home. We keep the nation fully informed.
In Africa, technology has created many new ways of doing things.
ICT is an increasingly important part of everybody's life.
It's being used in education, for social media, and now for farming too.
The best thing about internet for a farmer is that we get to share information.
On Network, we give you all the important African technology and social media news. That's Network with me, Phumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time, only on SABC News.
Very good morning to you. Watching Newsroom. It's shortly after 11 a.m. Central African time here on the Newsroom show. Of course, we're with you every weekday morning between 9 and 12. Myself and Elvis Preslin. We've been pushing the question today, Elvis. Before you go and sit, Kendall, you've been speaking Bok Rugby. We're done with that now. We're going to deal with our question on the screen. So, Elvis, do we care more about rhinos than refugees? We've had a whole host of responses.
A number of responses, and I think people are heated about this debate. Semi Ben says, just like here in South Africa, Zimbabweans are being chased away. There are better things to do than chasing away our foreigners. He says. That's Semi
Refugees. Doc Moses says, yes, Newsroom, show me one hero of refugee rights. None. In the media, you find more stats about rhinos. Every single day, I can add there, Doc Moses. Robert Rutherford, this man, he's got no time for refugees. Elvis?
No, he says, well, there will always be refugees, but will we always have rhinos? If the slaughter of rhinos carry on, well, Robert, it shows the attitude.
Yep, it shows where we are. How about a little bit of humanity? Lechasa talks, he says, Newsroom, poaching. Finally, you raise my point. Rhino poaching is influenced by high unemployment, corruption, and the SABC. Of course, we spoke a little bit earlier about the report on corruption and the effect that it has with wildlife crime. That was very much the focus of our first hour.
Monkey Business says it is an insult to humanity to place animal lives before humans. And I fully agree with you, Monkey Business.
Yeah, we asked the question today. The question is, do we care more about rhino than we care about refugees? It's a tough question, but we feel we have to ask it. Keep it coming. We'll keep your tweets running through. We'll even run them on tomorrow's show if they are any good and add to the discourse. We're standing by, well, 2 minutes after 11. Let's go to Elvis for our next news update.
Former Minister of Public Works and Chairperson of the National Assembly, Thoko Didiza, has been named as the ANC's Tshwane mayoral candidate. As World Refugee Day is celebrated today, South Africa has been praised for its fair treatment of refugees and asylum seekers. And campaigning for Britain's vote on EU membership resumed after a 3-day stay prompted by the killing of the pro-EU lawmaker Joe Cars. Those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Very good to have you back. Really, it is. It's soothing to hear that deep bass so early in the morning. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today. Dustin Johnson wins his first major as he takes the 116th US Open by 3 strokes for the final round 69.
Can he find the killer pass? Well, that's a wonderful ball, and Payet smashing the crossbar.
And at the Euro, the hosts, France, qualify for the knockout stage as winners of their group after a tepid draw against Switzerland.
We are so excited for what you are going to do this week, and as a family, we are standing behind you. Go Bokke!
And the Springboks are the darlings of the nation once again as they pull out one out of the fire in a dazzling second-half display against the bewildered Ireland over the weekend.
And on debut, he will go over!
That is what we've got for you in the sports. Be sure to stick around for it at about 11:40 or so. But for now, it's back to the main desk for the news.
Top story this hour. Former Minister of Public Works and Chairperson of the National Assembly, Thoko Didiza, has been named as the ANC's Tshwane mayoral candidate. The ANC Deputy Secretary General, Jesse Duarte, addressed the media at the party's headquarters in Johannesburg a while ago. Duarte says the party is satisfied with its choice of the mayor, despite how the news of the candidate was received in the municipality.
Didiza is not a celebrity of any nature. She is a very hard-working activist of the African National Congress. She served in various different portfolios, including as Minister of Public Works, Minister of Agriculture. So she is a candidate with extremely deep level of experience in governance. And to simply cast her away as a celebrity is suggesting that she's not competent. She's extremely competent, and she will be able to lead the mayoral committee very ably and ensure that the integrated development program for Tshwane is ably implemented, and that is why we thought of her. How will we ensure that all structures accept the decision? The reason we've brought the entire complement of the Regional Executive Committee here with us today is because they have decided amongst themselves, firstly, to unanimously accept the nomination of Togo Didiza, and that they will make sure that they go out to all the structures and talk to this matter and explain as we would in every other circumstance of this nature. Thirdly, why was the PEC not convinced? When we do the selection of mayoral candidates, the reason our resolution is framed in the manner that it is framed, where we ask them to send us 3 names to the PEC and the decision of the PEC is final, is so that evaluations can be made on more than just technical competence, but also the unity of the ANC in a particular region. And one of our difficulties has been that the intensity of the competition in Tshwane had led to a breakdown of the relationships between 2 key individuals in that region. Now, they will still be the regional leadership. I need to make that very clear to all of us. They will still be leading the region, and we want to give them the opportunity to focus their minds on building the ANC structurally and making sure that they go back to the ground, as they are both activists, both Comrade Ramakgopa and Comrade, both activists, competed against each other. Now they have to go back to the ground and work hard to unite the ANC together. Thirdly, no, we have no discussions about coalitions in Tshwane or anywhere else. Normally, that doesn't happen until you really have to discuss it, you know, and we don't believe that we have to. We have been working on the ground in Tshwane. We were there on Friday, the entire day, and from the response of the community, who may have questions, the question that is not being put to us is that they will not support the ANC. And I think there's a vast difference between being cynical and being realistic. And we've been very realistic. We're also not arrogant. We count every vote as being very important. And so we're going back on the ground and we're going to work hard for the vote of Tshwane. So why was Ramakgopa not considered? I think the decision of the PEC is a final decision, and we are all respecting that decision. And also that in the 3 names that were presented by the REC to the PEC, he was not amongst the 3. So we must just keep that in mind and work backwards if we can, and understand that we are deploying these comrades to work in the ANC and to make sure that the ANC is solid and united.
Now, political infighting among the African National Congress factions has been blamed for the violent death of a Sanko leader at Madibeng near Brits in the northwest. Thabo Moroa was shot and killed at his home in Maboloka village. No one has yet been arrested for the murder.
The Moroa family is still reeling from shock. 4 people allegedly entered Thabo's house early Saturday and shot him 3 times. His friend was also hit.
The guy was shot around 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. Then he was shot with 3 bullets, 2 in the legs, in the thighs, and the other one in the heart. And then his friend was shot from the back through the stomach. The criminals were 3. The other one was a driver. All in all, there were 4.
Moroa was the local Sanko secretary. Infighting among Tripartite Alliance members is said to be escalating. Now a desperate appeal for the ANC national leadership to intervene.
All meetings of the ANC, the BGMs, the AGMs, the community meeting, the people that come in there with guns and pangas. And then we have requested the leadership to issue a statement. Now, till today, nothing happened.
Northwest Police are investigating a case of housebreaking, attempted murder and murder.
Aid group Médecins Sans Frontières, or MSF, has announced it will no longer take money from any member of the European Union, including Britain. Now, this is in protest at the way Europe has responded to the refugee crisis. MSF says it can no longer take money from countries and institutions that are intensifying attempts to push people and their suffering away from European shores. This decision will take effect immediately and will apply to MSF's projects worldwide. The decision could see the organization miss out on $47 million, the amount that MSF was given by the EU members, EU institutions and Norway in 2015. In particular, MSF has criticized the EU-Turkey deportation deal that is meant to ensure the deportation of almost all asylum seekers arriving by boat to Greece. MSF has also condemned Europe's ongoing attempt to pay dictatorships in Africa to stem migration flows before they reach Europe. MSF says these moves risk stranding refugees in precarious conditions. Now, the United Nations today released their Global Trends report on the state of refugees around the world. Let's take a look at the highlights of this report.
Look at their faces. Faces of loss. Homes, villages, even countries lost. Their harrowing stories are of fear and flight and courage. In 2015, 3.2 million were seeking asylum, the highest number in history. There were 21.3 million refugees, the highest number since the 1990s. And 40.8 million were displaced in their own country, the highest number ever. A total of 65.3 million people. Forced displacement has doubled in less than 20 years. From 33.9 million to more than 60 million people forced from homes, driven to flee. This is their testimony.
أقل شيء هي أبوي راح لليوم ما بنعرفه ما هي الطقية ما بنعرفه.
شو صار مع أبوك ليه؟
راح بالأحداث.
Yo me vine a alojarme acá porque perdí un hijo, me mataron un hijo. Y yo pensaba que también.
Increasingly, this affects each one of us. In 2015, one of every 113 people on the planet was either seeking asylum, internally displaced, or a refugee. Every minute, 24 people were newly displaced in the world. That's a population greater than all of France. Most were found in the Middle East and then Africa. Europe had the smallest number, and that included Ukraine and Turkey. One of every 113.
Unbelievable numbers there. You've seen it live right here on the Newsroom. The question that we pose to you is, do we care as a people, as a society? Do we care more about Rhino or rhinos than what we care about our own refugees? I would like to find it from you. Let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on the Facebook page. But first, let's take a break and we'll be right back after that.
What's wrong with Triple M? What is illegal here? Who is being defrauded here, Trevor?
It is about the best interest of the citizens of this country.
But the citizens are the ones who are playing, who are members or participants in this. If you put in 15,000 rand, after 12 months you get 1.2 million rands. I mean, who wouldn't go for this?
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News channel.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom. Of course, our focus or our theme today is rhino poaching and how corruption is affecting rhino poaching, not just on the continent, but globally. Now, Zimbabwe's rhino population has slipped below the 800 mark last year as a result of poaching. The country will lobby CITES for the right to sell its rhino horn and elephant ivory stockpile to pay for conservation when they meet later this year. Of course, that meeting is in South Africa in September now. Our correspondent, Shinganyoka, visited the country's oldest national park in southern Zimbabwe, where friction has marred relations between wildlife and the park's surrounding communities. A new program is now hoping to end this conflict and save the rhino.
Tracking rhino is one of the world's top 10 wildlife experiences, and tourists in the Zimbabwean bush have stumbled on a mother and child. Poachers slaughtered a quarter of the rhino population between 2007 and 2009, but since then the numbers have grown. But authorities are not taking any risks.
Just behind me in this thicket are 2 rhinos at the Matopos National Park. The National Authority won't tell us exactly how many rhinos they have housed in this particular national park. They say it's just simply too dangerous to tell the outside world.
Rhinos have been targeted here since the 1990s. Their horns peddled on Asia's black markets as an aphrodisiac and a cure for cancer. The Matobo Rhino Initiative Trust has a plan to keep these organized syndicates out.
One is confinement, so we built a fence around an area of the park to stop the rhino from straying out, and also to concentrate the anti-poaching. The other area is the anti-poaching itself, which is done mostly by the Department of National Parks, and here in the Matopos they're doing a really fantastic job. The other is the dehorning.
No rhinos were killed in 2014, but the following year poaching flared up again. A bullet penetrated this rhino's skull here. Those are axe marks where poachers hacked off the horn. The trust says most rhinos don't die immediately and wander around riddled with bullet holes and horrific wounds. It's prompted a reward-based program so that the community can see the value of the living animal.
The idea is to encourage the tourists to give some donations into our rhino cooking pot. So having a community presence that are involved in the national park, receive benefit from the national park, those are people that are going to be proactive in stopping poachers from moving into the park and poaching.
The more poaching there is in the park, the less money the community receives from the rhino cooking pot. The reverse is also true. The community patrols and repairs the security fence and are the eyes and ears of the initiative.
Have you seen poachers in your community?
Yes, are there. People are there, but it's difficult to mention their names. They stop to poach because they benefit from the national park. I think many people is what they want.
The world has been outraged at high-value wildlife poaching in Zimbabwe, but authorities say it hasn't always translated into the monetary support needed to protect the animals. The park's authority has a shoot-to-kill policy on poachers, but poverty and the community's simmering resentment over forced removal from their land to make way for the park has fueled indifference to and conflict with the animals. As the community builds another center, the Matopos Initiative hopes that this program will strengthen their appreciation for endangered wildlife for future generations. Shinganyoka, SABC News, Bulawayo, Zimbabwe.
Now we talk about the SABC. Our board chairperson, Professor Obed Maguve, says the board is excited about the innovations and strategies on local content that's been introduced by the SABC COO, Mr. Tshwane. It's been so well received by other broadcasters on the continent, especially, he says. Now, the SABC has already met with some key stakeholders, including public service broadcasters, to discuss the possibility of rolling this out, or the transformational drive, to other African countries. Now, the acting CEO, Jimmy Matthews, has added by saying Mr. Tshwane has the rare qualities of a leader, seasoned broadcaster, and also an astute business mind whose main priority since joining has always been to save the organisation. He also raised significant funds and in the process saved numerous employees from losing their jobs. Now, our sister's show this morning, Morning Live, spoke to the SABC spokesperson, Kaiser Khanyago, about this.
From all over Africa, after people had local content, not only the music content, but also issues around television content, they have shown interest, and we are talking to a lot of them who are interested in understanding how we came to this and how we are implementing it. And for us, it's something that is very great. As you have said in the intro, the board, through Professor Maguve, has indicated that these strategies, when we put them together, we wanted to make sure that we benefit the South African public. But now, when we have got this interest from other African countries, it means the strategies that were spearheaded by Tate Motsoeneng are now bearing a lot of fruit. And that is what he says in the, to us about this issue.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do a lot of other African countries not have the same mandate of playing majority of their own home music, 90% versus 10% international? Or is it very much so how things used to be before this was implemented?
Having a mandate is one part, like we have always had a mandate.
Yeah.
But having to implement it is really something else. As people have always been saying, when Tate Motsoeneng exposed this issue to say now we're doing it with immediate effect, that's why people all over are saying Mr. Motsoeneng came with a radical decision. And for us, it is the implementation is what is attracting a lot of attention from all the people throughout the continent.
Yeah, yeah. Which is, it's fantastic. And I think that it's just such a, it's an exciting time that lies ahead for all of us and for our African counterparts. But when it comes to that local music, I mean, does it include African musicians as well? Does it include these artists in our lineup?
No, definitely. I remember at one of the press conferences, or they asked me, Tate Motsoeneng, what do we mean by local?
Yes.
Do we include African music? And he said, we are in Africa. Therefore, that is an indication clear that our local music will include African artists that are not in South Africa.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So we talk about those good things, and I think South Africans widely welcomed that call. And I say widely because obviously there are some people that were not in favour of it, but the majority did. However, there's been a lot of criticism that the SABC has come under just over these recent times, particularly with a blackout on visuals that are happening at protests. You know, what's your response to South Africa when it comes to some of the very negative press that we've gotten out of this?
I think the people are deliberately misinterpreting what we are saying. And I keep on saying to most of the journalists I talk to, I think they have not read our statement, because we have made it very clear that people have got the right to protest. We have made it very clear in the statement that we will continue to cover their protest without fear or favor. But the only thing is we have taken a stand against the people who are playing to the gallery in terms of wanting to ban and destroy properties when they see the cameras in front of them. And we have got proof of instances, many instances, where our journalists get called and they say, come to us at this time, we're going to be doing this. They wait for you to arrive for them to start doing some of these things. And we are saying we have taken a stand, but we will continue to cover those protests without fear or favor. And we have said it very clearly. And the people are going around saying that we have banned something. We have not banned anything. We have told people in advance to say, if you think you're going to destroy property and we are going to then publicize that on our platforms, we are not going to do it. And we'll still tell people that 24 schools have been banned in that area, but those visuals where people are running amok and doing it and playing to the gallery, we are not going to do it.
Yeah. Let's talk about some other stories, and that, of course, is the editors being dropped from SAFM, it caused a huge outcry, and a lot of people saying, and now what's going on? You know, it was something that was well established, many people listened to it, and suddenly now it's being cancelled, not giving a voice to other editors, different political visions are not allowed to be shared, and you know, these are some of the criticisms that have come up. I mean, again, your comment on, you've had time to read some of these criticisms.
No, I did, Leanne, and the issue is very simple. People must understand that radio and television evolves. And the program you're talking about, it is that one and another one which we are going to be removing, which is on RSG.
So,
They've been there for years.
Can we just get a confirmation on that one? There's been a lot of talk about that, so I'm going to add that into the mix. So is it official that Kommentaar on RSG is going to now be removed?
Yes, we're going to phase it out. It's a fact. And the reality is, let's take a simple example with the editor. The editor has been there since the 80s. And we have a program that has been there for this long. And then when we change it, and people then start complaining. And it is mainly the people in the print media, purely because we were interviewing them in these interviews. And I always ask them this question. Do you put headlines of the SABC in your newspapers on a day-to-day basis? They don't. And they think we have got an obligation to interview them. We will put new innovative programs on our platforms, and we are going to change. The same way as they've got the right to change whatever feature is on their newspapers, we have got the right to change it. And we have made a decision that we're going to remove the editor, replace it with something that will be suitable at that particular time. And Mr. Tshwane always says, why do we always have to think that we have to follow newspapers when we can break our own stories ourselves? But in this particular instance, the brouhaha is caused by the fact that it was a platform where newspaper editors were coming to promote what is on their newspapers for free. And we are saying, come and pay. We are in the same market. Pay for this space, and we will talk about your headline news.
Now, over the weekend, South Africa's LGBT communities paid tribute to the victims of the Orlando shootings in Florida. In a public show of support for the 49 victims and their families, a vigil was held at St. George's Anglican Cathedral in Cape Town. It was attended by members of the public, the LGBTI community, and various faith-based organizations, including Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu.
Three-minute silence for the lives lost in America. Various speakers called for the issue of exclusion and discrimination to be addressed.
How long are we going to continue exclusion? When are we going to stop excluding people on basis of all kinds of things? In South Africa, we've learned it through apartheid and the scriptural, biblical legitimization of apartheid. You know, this is the same kind of things for millennia now. Hate against homosexuals, LGBTI people have been condoned by religions, and this is not acceptable anymore. We must change our behavior. We need to change these things. We can't continue excluding. We need to change our dogmas if this is the result of it, this kind of hate crimes and the killings that happens, the rape that happens. It can't continue any longer.
Various NGOs also attended, saying liberal laws alone are not enough.
In South Africa, while we have a legal precedent in terms of non-discrimination, the daily lives of ordinary people, in particular black lesbians, black transgender persons, is extraordinarily complex and difficult and full of contradictions, and they need voices to be heard, their voices to be heard, and solidarity.
Religious leaders also spoke out.
We're told we can love, but just love someone of another sex. So the church kind of is guilty, I think, of double talk here, because it's saying you're commanded to love, but not you, and certainly not love someone of the same gender.
We have to be very vigilant as Muslims and thinking in what is the real meaning of Islam and how does this meaning of peace translate in our lives. And also, maybe this is a time for the Muslim community to reassess how they understand sexual orientation and gender identity, so that we can also eventually put an end to the homophobia that comes from Muslim communities and that are also preached from the pulpit.
Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu also attended the vigil to show his support. Faith leaders say perceptions must change.
The church has had a huge impact on the homophobic violence that's happening all over the world, and that we need to acknowledge that we've caused a lot of pain in the way that we treat the LGBT people. And once we acknowledge that, we can really move forward into giving people a sense of dignity and respect and allowing them to be who they are.
As South Africa celebrates Youth Month, the Triangle Project had this message for young people.
It's very difficult to talk about the Orlando shooting, especially with such prevalence in South Africa. But for me particularly, it's dealing with how we deal with homophobia amongst the youth, because that is essentially where a large amount of it stems from. And just to get the youth involved, because this is it's a movement that needs youth. It needs a large volume of people and it needs support.
And the overarching message, only love and acceptance will make the difference. Mariska Botha, SABC News, Cape Town.
After a short break, we'll bring you sports news to close the day's proceedings. Don't go away.
Today provide news updates giving a wealth of knowledge, breaking stories and crossing live for you. We follow business developments intensely. Experts and analysts tackle all challenging issues for you. We cover stories locally and abroad to keep you informed. We cover all sporting codes just for you. We are sure to give you weather to be ready for the day. Stay tuned to News Today at 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday on SABC News.
Welcome back. My name is Kendall Makhamat and I've got your sports on Newsroom. US Open winner Dustin Johnson has moved up to third in the world after securing victory at the tricky Oakmont golf course. After previously recording 11 top 10s in the majors without winning, including 2 run-up spots, Johnson secured his maiden major crown, albeit under initially uncertainty of his victory margin. Brendan Grace was the best-placed South African, ending tie 5th, 4 shots behind the winner after hitting a final round 71. The winner Johnson finished 3 shots in front of fellow Americans Jim Furyk and Scott Percy and Irishman Shane Lowry. Lowry had been 4 ahead after the weather-delayed 3rd round was completed earlier, but he struggled in the conditions while piling up 7 bogeys. Johnson negotiated the final 7 holes under notice that he might be penalised for a rules infraction on the 5th green. This despite being cleared by another official at the time. He was docked a shot after the round's completion, with his score amended to a closing 69 for a 4-under winning total of 276. After sinking the final putt for birdie, Johnson clinched his 10th PGA Tour victory. Now France and Switzerland are through to the 2nd round of Euro 2016 after playing to a goalless draw. In another match, Albania beat Romania 1-0, but we'll have to wait to see if they advance as one of the best 3rd-place finishes. Meanwhile, Group B is primed to be a close-run affair, with England up against Slovakia and Wales facing off against Russia.
Goalkeeper thought about coming and made a horrible error, and Albania have gone in front. Sadiqa with a goal.
Albania scored their first ever goal at a major tournament, Armando Sadiku drawing first blood just before half-time. Romania came close a few times, but it turned out to be an historic night in Lyon for Albania.
It is a famous win for Albania,
who still harbour slim hopes of getting out of Group A as one of the best 3rd-placed sides. A draw for France and Switzerland would see both sides through, and despite the considerable threats from an impressive French side, not least of all from Paul Pogba and Dimitri Payet, the match ended goalless as France topped Group A, with Switzerland following close behind on the hosts' coattails.
Payet smashing the crossbar.
Monday night's final Group B matches are full of promise. England need just a point from their match against Slovakia to qualify for the knockout stages. Time again for coach Roy Hodgson to pull off a tactical master stroke as he decides which striking partnership to use.
And as for Jamie and Daniel, they did very well when they came on against Wales, and I'm sure they'd like another chance too. So the options are there. We've spoken at length on many occasions about the options available, especially in those front positions, and nothing changes, and it's a decision that has to be made.
And despite Wales and Russia losing their second Group B matches, both could still qualify provided they win. Simon Burke, SABC News.
Now, the triangular one-day international clash between South Africa and Australia in Bridgetown, Barbados, was abandoned due to rain, with just 1 over being bowled. Australian captain Steve Smith earlier won the toss and sent the Proteas to bat first in A.B. de Villiers' 200th ODI. South Africa were on 8 without loss in the first over when rain forced the players to scramble for cover at the Kensington Oval. Quinton de Kock was on 5, while Hashim Amla was yet to open his account. Umpires eventually called the game off as wet conditions continued. The result means the Proteas still top the table on 12 points, with Australia on 11 and the hosts on 8. The Windies play Australia on Tuesday and the South Africans on Friday before the two top teams advance to Sunday's final. Other news are topping headlines. Yesterday, Mercedes driver Nico Rosberg led from start to finish in the first Formula One race ever held in Azerbaijan to win the European Grand Prix on the Baku Street Circuit, extending his lead in the Formula One Championship to 24 points over teammate Lewis Hamilton.
Rosberg started the race from pole position and immediately opened up a gap on the chasing pack, led by Daniel Ricciardo in the Red Bull and the Ferraris of Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen. The Mercedes driver was in a class of his own all afternoon, and he extended his lead to more than 25 seconds by the time he made his only pit stop for new tyres. Rosberg led every lap of the race and set the fastest lap time. All the excitement on the track was supplied by the chasing cars. Vettel overtook the struggling Ricciardo, and then his team instructed Raikkonen to move over for the German. The four-time world champion set after Rosberg, but the Ferrari was no match for the Mercedes. Raikkonen incurred a 5-second penalty for crossing a white line on his way into the pits. This moved the Force India of Sergio Perez into third, although he was behind the Ferrari on the road. With a lap to go, the Mexican managed to overtake the Ferrari to the delight of his technicians. Lewis Hamilton, who started 10th after crashing during qualifying yesterday, had a frustrating race. His Mercedes was down on power, and his technical crew were not allowed to advise him of the correct settings.
And focus on the job.
With a win, Rosberg extended his championship lead over Hamilton to 24 points.
To be honest, today I'm just enjoying this win because that's what I came here for. I wanted to win Baku and it's worked out, so ecstatic. Can't wait to go down.
But you've got to answer my question.
I'm not answering your question. I'm avoiding it. And I'm going to go down, see everybody, and big celebrations.
Raikkonen was fourth ahead of the struggling Hamilton, and Valtteri Bottas rounded out the top 6. Hannes Reineke, SABC News.
And in a very big story for this morning, LeBron James powered the Cleveland Cavaliers to a 93-89 victory over the Golden State Warriors on Sunday in an electrifying Game 7 to complete an improbable comeback, unlike any seen before, and capture their first NBA championship. With a victory over the top-seeded Warriors, who beat Cleveland in last year's championship, the Cavaliers became the first team to rally from a 3-1 series deficit in the best-of-7 NBA Finals and win the title. Here's a snippet of some of the action.
Green leading the break. Green's pass stolen by James, and Mo Williams all alone. LeBron James had 4 steals in Game 6, 3 in Game 5, and that one leads to an easy bucket. James on the drive, foul, layup, counted and one. 3 with the 3 fouls. James passes it off, Smith another 3. That's good. J.R. Smith back-to-back threes. And 8 points here to start the third quarter.
Curry, crossover, three-pointer, it's good! Steph Curry from way downtown, and we're tied again. Curry catches, one dribble, steps back, puts up a three, won't go, rebound tip taken by Spades, final seconds, it's over, it's over! Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
I can tell you everything that we're hearing coming out of that one is LeBron James is extremely emotional, winning it for Cleveland, Ohio. Now, with just a week to go until the start of the third Grand Slam of the season at Wimbledon, 2013 champion Andy Murray has made his title contention very clear. Murray claimed a record 5th title at the Aegon Championships in London, downing Canada's Milos Raonic.
No other player has ever won 5 titles at the Queen's Club in West London since the tournament's inception in 1890. And not many would have put their money on the Briton after he lost the opening set in a tiebreaker. But Murray, who already rewrote the record books in 2013 when he became the first Briton to win in Wimbledon since 1936, was not going to be silenced that easily. Spurred on by his home crowd, Murray battled back from love 3 down in the second set, breaking the big serving Canadian in 2 consecutive games as he reeled off 12 winners to level proceedings at 1 set apiece. Oozing confidence in the decider, Murray continued to dictate play and, making no mistake, sealed his 6-7, 6-4 and 6-3 victory on his opponent's serve.
6-7, 6-3. He becomes the first player ever to win this tournament on 5 separate occasions.
And Germany's Florian Mayer triumphed in the all-German final at the Jerry Weber Open in Halle. Mayer was forced to overcome a spirited challenge from his compatriot Alexander Zverev. A steady and composed Mayer bullied his teenage opponent with a barrage of lobs and, breaking his serve twice, cruised through the opening set in just 24 minutes. The pair traded breaks in the second set, but it was the German youngster who thrived under pressure. The 19-year-old saved 2 championship points on his way to grabbing the second 7-5 and forcing a decider. They remained on serve until the 6th game during the third set, when a visibly labouring Mayer broke to love, reeling off 11 straight points for a 5-2 lead. Mayer eventually closed out the match on his 5th championship point after 1 hour and 55 minutes on court. The score 6-2, 5-7 and 6-3 for his 2nd title on the ATP Tour. Samantha Mari, SABC News.
Here's a quick look at some of your comments on the sporting action from the weekend. Starting with the first on Baseka. In other news, Satif 0, Mamelodi Sundowns 2 in the CAF Champions League. It was crazy. The fans in Algeria went ape because they couldn't believe it. Clarence Watts, what a good South African sporting weekend. Bokke, Bafana, Sundowns. Yes, Bafana, they drew 1-1 with Lesotho and 1-4-2 on penalties. Then we've got North, Jesus, Mabunda and Arendse. Classic reason why you should never give up in life. Downs, live, hashtag Sundowns. Dame Hopisi. I wonder what Alistair Couture said to the players during half-time. The Springboks came out blazing. I'll tell you what he did. He dropped Lazinvovo and all thought, oh, it's me next. Jalal Al-Hamoud. History has been made in the NBA 2016 season. Warriors by breaking the Chicago Bulls record and the Cavs by the comeback from 3-1 to win it all. Fantastic stuff, and I hope that's a picture of LeBron James with a cup in hand. This is before and after his tears. Very emotional night for that man. Carmel X says, NBA champs, LeBron Cavs, NBA. Congratulations to the Cavaliers for doing the unthinkable and coming back from 3-1 down. And that's where we leave it with the sport, with that picture on your screen. And I hand over to Elvis, who's got more with Dr. Martin.
Thank you, Kendall. As usual, we start off on Monday to look at the week that passed. Now, the ANC earlier denied reports over the weekend that former Public Works Minister Toko Rodiza has been officially named as the party's mayoral candidate in the highly contested Tshwane Metro. But just a short while ago, at a press conference, we were informed that she will be the mayoral candidate. Political infighting among ANC factions has been blamed for also the violent death of a Sanko leader at Madibeng near Brits in the northwest. Now, social commentator Dr. Leonard Martin joins us to look at the week that passed and some of the major stories that unfolded during the week and how it impacts on society. But I think the major story is, of course, the elections, Doctor. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Alvis, and good morning to the viewers.
Now, we had strong denials over the weekend that Toko Rudisa is not a candidate or the mayoral candidate for Tshwane, but we just heard now a short while ago at the press conference that she will be the mayoral candidate. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, it's an indication of what has been happening over the last practically 2 weeks. The huge discourse about names on lists that have gone missing or have been contested. The issue of Toko Rudisa again indicates there has been an intensification of the fractious nature in terms of the selection process. Now, at one level, it indicates political struggle within the ANC. On the other hand, it also, in an overall sense, indicates what lies ahead in relation to the direct access and transparency of communities in selecting communities. Greater social issues are coming to the fore. You've commented on the deaths that we have begun to see, indicating that the politics that we are heading towards are being increasingly influenced by issues of poverty, social dislocation, but also the contestation of the process of selection itself.
Is this perhaps also a suggestion that the candidates list system is not working for the ANC?
Well, this time round, if we say that this was perhaps an experiment in transparency, it has lifted the lid over the intense nature of issues on the ground, and there's no way of escaping it. The list becomes a socially contested vehicle, and it perhaps has to be rethought in terms of the approach of selection.
Looking at the elections, do you think that this will be an uneasy election or run-up to the election for the African National Congress?
I think rather than uneasy, that we are beginning to see the nature of the imprint of democracy on the ground, that it is no longer a walk in the park to compile these lists, because I think the interests are beginning to break through very clearly in terms of saying let communities decide who their best candidates are. And it's not only the ANC, I think other political parties are going to experience this as well.
Weekend reports in the newspaper suggest that it's going to be tough in the metros and in some of the municipalities for the African National Congress, the DA and, of course, the EFF coming to the fore. What do you read into this?
Elvis, I think the politics of the last 22 years is changing. We are beginning to see a reconfiguration of the political space. And this in itself makes the elections both exciting, but at the same time opens up great promise in terms of communities having an influence on the practice of democracy.
Which metros you think will be mostly contested?
Well, Pretoria is definitely one of them. Tshwane is one of them. Johannesburg will be contested. And if we go further afield, we see that the Cape Town itself has 74 parties contesting this election, which in fact creates a certain tension, but at the same time opens up the prospects for what democracy really is going to reveal.
Can we expect any surprises during this upcoming local government elections, Doctor?
I don't want to go into the betting business, but I think the ANC is just going to manage just about to hold on some of the metros. Just about. I don't expect spectacular surprises, but at the same time, the smaller parties are probably going to lay their imprint fully in terms of who potentially could become kingmakers in the process.
Anything that stood out for you during the course of the week that passed?
Well, Elvis, I think we can perhaps play blind, but the drug question among our youth and the death of Hope Sinde brings it home that drugs cuts across all ethnicities, all social classes, and is staring South Africa in the face. Is this what our youth is facing in relation to the future? It's a major question that's being posed to us all.
Doctor, thank you so much for your time and joining us here on Newsroom.
Thank you very much.
Now that was Dr. Leonard Martin, social commentator. He's joining us every week on a Monday to look at the week that passed and some of the major stories that unfolded during the week and how it impacts on you and me and us as a society. Well, that's where we got to leave it for now. We thank you for your comments on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. By the way, if you like us there on the Facebook page, you become part and parcel of the Informed. That's all we have for you here in Newsroom. From myself, Elvis Preston, and the team as a collective, we'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Arrivederci.